Welcome to the Mad Ones. I'm your no, I don't want to move. I'm not going to move. And if you want me to move, you're going to have to make me move, host Cam Harless. And with me, as always, is your got suspended from Twitter for not wanting to murder Russians hostess, Miss Jessica Green.
I'm
How you doing,
sorry.
Jessica?
I'm so sorry. I do want to murder Russians.
She didn't mean it, Susan. She didn't mean it.
No, but apparently that's okay. It's not okay not to want to.
You have
I
to
don't really
want
know
to
how.
murder at least one Russian to be acceptable on Twitter.
No refuse nicks. You have
No.
to. That's
No,
what you
gotta
have to do.
You got to do it. You got
Yeah.
to burn all of your Adidas tracksuits. You've got to throw away the vodka, and you've got to get to work, Jessica.
I don't know what I'm going to do on Saturday nights now if I can't wear tracksuits and drink too much vodka, but okay.
I have no idea. I mean, that's my everyday. But we have a show, and I think it's going to be a good show. Don't you think so, Jessica?
I'm the jury's out. We'll see.
We'll see. But this show is 100% brought to you by the fans and patrons. So hit like, subscribe, and share the show with friends. We've got all sorts of topics that we've covered: death, nuclear science, spiritual warfare, cults, porn, abortion, Russians. And, it's just going to go from there. It's going to keep growing into these different areas. One cool thing, and I told you this, Jessica, but it's not for a little bit, but I actually spoke to a guy who grew up in a polygamist Mormon compound. Neat. And got away from it. And so we'll be talking to him, I think in April, I want to say.
All right.
But very excited about that. But also join our Patreon. We put out the occasional early episode, Zoom hangout, and you'll get our eternal gratefulness from me and Jessica. So patreon.com/themadOnes. We have shirts as well. We are themadOnes.com/store. So do that. But we should probably, the shilling's over. I'm done telling you what to do. I'm not your dad, so we got to move on. Joining us tonight are two of our favorite returning guests. They're personal friends and friends of the show. He's a musician, a dirty leftoid, a podcast host, a father, a colonizer, a punk, and the perfect mixture of both toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. And that's both terrifying and exhilarating. She is his other half, arguably the better half, a very thoughtful and intelligent woman, a podcast host, a mother, has been colonized, and the best damn beard her husband could ask for. It's Mr. and Mrs. Lizzie and Nick Pecone. How are you guys doing?
Awesome.
I'm going to be honest with you. Like, as you can see, not to break the facade on all this like too early, but we're in different places, and I've just been spending too much time, I guess, around my friends of the left, and me and Liz have split up because she can't give me an answer to the question, why is she so stupid that she would date a racist? Why did she marry a racist man? Clearly, she doesn't understand that she's being colonized.
Yeah, she's been colonized. And I mean, that doesn't look good for the blacks.
Wow. Well,
you didn't see what he's talking about.
Right out the gates.
Anytime you put "the" in front of a short description of people, it always sounds worse. Like, you can say gays, but if you say the gays, suddenly, or
I'm going to be honest,
with the word Jew,
doesn't work.
What?
The Italians.
Well, yeah, that's because they're a loathsome people.
We own it.
And they know it.
So what's fun about this episode is when I was filling up the month of February, I was like, I need to have Nick and Lizzie back because we have had multiple conversations, especially Nick. You've been on the show several times. Lizzie was on with you one time, and after those episodes, we always talk for these long periods of time. And the first one with you and Lizzie, we talked about your marriage and kind of interracial marriage and how that looks and how race has affected you. And it was like this very interesting conversation where I was like, I didn't know that. I wouldn't have expected this particular thing. And I'm like, why weren't we freaking recording? So we're now recording it. And it's also this is the last show of February, so last show of Black History Month, and that's a perfect time to do it, I feel like. So are y'all comfortable talking about your sex life? No, I'm just not that.
Please don't tempt him, okay? Because he will. He's
Just to
gotten enough of
clarify.
those DMs that he's just like, oh, you really want to know?
Wow, no, people really
No,
DM you like.
No, I'll
to
just
ask you?
send you video. That's fine.
No,
You
they
don't wanna know.
DM to say how gross it is, and his automatic response is to say, "Oh, well then."
You
I
think that's
learned with
gross? Watch this.
Audibly. I learned audibly, so I just need like MP3s.
Wow. Yeah, he needs wave files.
Oh
of-
my gosh.
FLAC if you
sound.
got it.
Wow. So just to clarify, they're separated into two different rooms in their own
Because he's
house.
loud. His voice
Right.
is powerful, as in that Tenacious D song, and so we must contain it
Absolutely
within
like that.
walls.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So yeah, so you send people, this is legitimate because I believe you would, Nick, knowing you would legitimately send people videos.
If someone tells me that they think that like the idea of a black woman and a white man being like married is disgusting, my next reaction is, well, let me up the ante. Let's see if I can make you throw up. Now I realize that I have to stop at that point and go, this probably isn't going to have the thought to do what I want it to. So no. But if I actually
Okay.
thought it would, I absolutely would. 100%. I would send
And
the
Lizzie, how do you
nastiest
feel about
hardcore
this?
black
I mean,
fucking porn I can
he
make.
is who he is. What am I gonna do? I don't even do Twitter because I don't do like drama and being petty. That's what.
Psychopaths.
I'm gonna be honest. Twitter's even a
Right.
bit much for me.
So
Oh yeah.
I have found that when people are like really virulently anti-gay, it's usually because they have some kind of like homoeroticism latent within themselves. So imagine when people are sending you these messages telling you, "Oh, this is terrible and disgusting." There's a little bit of like, the inside there that's like maybe
Their
maybe
pH
he'll send me
history is ebony and ivory.
right, maybe.
Right.
Oh no,
maybe-
absolutely, and that's the thing
right.
that ultimately does stop me. It's like, oh, but the instinct to just like come out swinging. It's like, oh, really? Just the idea of it's that
Right.
bad? Well, let's fucking take it up 10 notches and see what you think of this.
Right.
That's my personality though. Is let's take it to 20.
Yes.
Take it to 20. This one goes to 11.
Right. He goes to 20. It's fine.
Right.
You know,
Wow.
you know what I just realized? I think the last time we had a conversation with both of you, it wasn't it was me and Kim. It was before
yeah.
Jessica had come on.
We did the
I think you're
Multiverse
correct.
of Madness episode,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Because it doesn't work as well with Jessica, but people would always send me pictures of you and be like, "This is you guys, you and Kim in a parallel universe."
Yeah. Yeah.
Be-
Before
was
either
like,
of us
oh.
knew each other, for the record.
Yeah, that was, and I was like, "I don't know who this person is. What does this mean? What?
Oh,
who
they
is
would
he?"
send you pictures of Nick and Lizzie.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
Right.
So
So
that's
you're like, hey, we've got to meet these people.
we could get into the rocky, strange history of me and Cam and his friends, and like
Oh,
the barbs that have been thrown over the years.
it was
It's all worked out
mostly
for the
David.
best.
well, it's funny because it's just like it's the groups of like good people. I think good people, and like just kind
Best
of
people.
not making the right connections at all
Yeah.
somehow.
Well, I mean, it doesn't help that I just like to come out and just get like real wild, real fast on the microphone. And
Well,
say
it's like-
crazy shit for the hell of saying crazy shit.
And I do some of that too. So I would have thought that, because to make it very simple, they had Kim on the show, and when David from The Morning Drive with David listened to it, he got offended about something that you had said, and
And
so
you had all of it right too. Like it was an
Yeah.
asshole thing to say. Like, I'm not gonna
what did
argue
you
that.
do? You remember what you said?
I think I probably referred to him as just some dumb redneck. or
Oh
some
yeah,
shit,
okay,
like,
yeah, that
just
was
something
the
very
afterwards, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
So it was-
forgot about that.
It was personal. It wasn't like about the troops or something like broad like that.
It is. I think I tried to listen to his episode once, and that's kind of what it felt like to me. Now, having
Aw.
met and talked to David, like David's a wonderful guy. I love David.
Yeah.
He means the world to me. But
Well, no, and
my first listen, it was, me
Well,
throwing
I think you
shade because I like
talked
throwing
about
shade.
guns or something, and you were like, "I don't want to listen to a gun podcast."
Yeah, I'm not that kind of. I carry a gun every day, and I still don't give a shit about guns most days.
So that means this conversation that I'm saying that we had and I'd like to get into is one Jessica hasn't had.
Nope.
So that's actually good because, you know, she can actually ask the same questions I probably did and we can get into it. Because I mean,
Nice.
I, you know, like I just know the things. So it's hard for me to be like, okay, so tell me about blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't really work as well coming from knowledge. So Jessica, do you have any questions for this very fine couple who one is a nice shade of mocha and the other is white chocolate? What
Oh
you
no,
got?
no! Don't ever call me white chocolate. I hate white chocolate.
Well, white chocolate's
Wha-
terrible.
White
Rightly
chocolate isn't
so.
chocolate. It's missing
It's
the
not.
thing that makes it chocolate. And the
Right.
fact
It's
they try
oil.
and pass it up. By the way, it's also incredibly like, you know, commie lefty, because
White chocolate is?
yeah, because you know how they come up with that, because chocolate like cocoa is mined by slaves and shit, so like they don't like the cocoa, so you got to make chocolate without cocoa to be more worldly.
I don't know if I'm buying
So
that.
give me the
I-
darkest cacao you possibly
Okay.
can. Armies of little black kids in the Congo making me chocolate.
Is that where chocolate comes from?
No, it's I believe it's in Africa, but
Maybe you're like a vanilla ice cream and she's hot fudge.
the way to say boring, but that's okay.
I'm not saying you're
Aw.
boring. I'm just saying I'm trying to describe
Vanilla's
your
not
skin
even a
tone.
flavor. Vanilla's the absence of flavor.
Well, that's the problem with vanilla though, because it's not. It is a very good
It is
flavor,
a flavor.
but because of the way we use it, we definitely talk about it like it's plain.
I've
and
been
it's not. It's
desensitized
good.
by years of a sad American diet. I don't taste vanilla anymore. It's just like, what the fuck is this ice? Give me something that's saltier and sweeter.
Yeah.
Do they
pretty
have
much.
to be? Do they have to be foods? Like, can they be other things that are not food?
So she's Darth Vader and he's a stormtrooper.
There you go.
Nice.
Okay, well, it's fine. Whatever.
Very
I
sexy.
I don't know. I don't know or care enough about Star Wars.
Okay, so like I said, do they have to be food? And everyone just like paused. Like, what do you mean not food?
What else would you describe things as?
How do
Like,
we
come on.
we
How would
describe people off of deliciousness only? Thank you
Right.
very
Well,
much.
Right.
what's real great is that like out of all of the nerd shit that like I could have just keyed off of and lost my mind over, you chose like the one franchise I don't give a
Just
shit
know
about at all.
nothing about.
No, I know a little bit. I just fucking hate Star Wars. It's
I
like
used to love
not
it. I used to
sci-fi.
love that crap. Well, it's space opera, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's not.
It's
It's never
high
really been
fantasy.
sci-fi, but it is. It is
In
technically
space.
a space opera, but it's like Disney truly ruined it for me because I loved it my whole life, and then those last 3 horrible movies destroyed everything for me. Like I
You know
don't give a
what's-
shit about
you know what's
it
way
anymore.
better than Star Trek? American
Star Wars?
Graffiti. Whatever. Sure.
Just
And now
Okay,
she's
is
taking
Is this
shade
also
on that
Star
one.
Trek? Come on, man.
I'm gonna be
Star
honest. If
Trek's
you watch
good.
not modern Star Trek, modern Star
Aw.
Trek.
oh, it's awful.
I've always thought of Star Trek as much geekier than even Star Wars.
Well, it is because Star Wars at least has like action and fights and things, and most of Star Trek, I mean, beyond the Space Cowboys first like series, is just like talking about philosophy and let's talk this out and try to come to a
And
consensus.
you know what the
and-
you know what the problem is that Space Cowboys, Joss Whedon did it better.
well,
And what's funny is I never here's the heresy. Here's the heresy. I've never made it through Firefly
yeah.
There's only
I
how
can't-
do you not make?
There's
There's only
one
like 12
season.
episodes
because it's not good enough to finish, in my opinion.
No,
I
you're
didn't
watching
get
out of
that.
order. You're doing it
Shots
wrong.
fired.
I don't. I've never been. I saw
Jesus
Serenity first.
Christ.
in
Okay,
the
well that's your
No,
mistake.
that's ruins.
That's your
You
mistake.
saw the end. You saw
It would be
the-
like watching Picard first and then trying to go back and watch all of Star Trek. Like,
But I
I
mean,
re-
like,
yeah,
I
I
feel like if I
refuse.
really liked the characters, that I would want to see the whole journey. But it's like I started watching it, and I was just, I
Tim,
guess I
it's
just,
worth,
I don't like Joss Whedon's writing.
it's
I think
worth
is the
watching
thing.
for
That's
one
fair.
line. One line. Weren't you on the losing side or the wrong side? Might have been the losing side. Still not convinced it was the wrong one.
There's
That
a-
line
there's a
alone
lot-
makes that show worthwhile.
yeah,
There's a lot to love about Firefly for sure.
I just
Um,
don't like. I don't like Joss Whedon's dialogue. is I
How do you
think what
not
it
like?
is.
How do you not like dude's fucking chin and like that drawl he has? Nathan
give me
Fillion-
that.
Nathan
That's
Fillion.
so much
He didn't
dialogue.
say that he didn't like Nathan Fillion. He said that he
Right.
didn't like Joss Whedon's
I
writing, which I
did-
can appreciate.
So I hate
Yeah.
Sean Astin, clearly.
Oh, right.
But I
right,
did
right.
I did meet Nathan Fillion once, and I got bad vibes off the guy.
Really?
So
That's so
so
sad.
that one's.
Keep that
That
shit
one's-
to yourself. Don't ruin
I'm just
another
saying.
one for me.
I'm just saying. I got bad vibes off of him. So I'm not saying he's Sean Astin, who
But
I
you gotta
wish
be
he had
careful
fallen
about that
into the
with
fire.
Liz, because I mean, her and her fucking Hobbit shit, like she might
Somebody
get up.
Somebody ruined Timothy Oliphant for me too, because I have a big Timothy Oliphant
Because
thing.
of his teeth.
No, I think he fills out a cowboy hat real well. That's neither here nor there. But somebody who's met him multiple times told me that he's real dumb. And I mean, that might not even be true. It might be a total like rumor, just someone saying some shit about the guy, but it killed it for me. And I'm like,
I mean, he
ugh,
does look pretty dumb.
he
Well,
looks
what's
like he's
interesting-
too attractive. He's probably dumb.
Is both Timothy Oliphant and what's his name, the guy who played Boyd Crowder,
Oh, that guy's great.
Walton Goggins.
Yeah.
They both, for different reasons, have fake teeth. So Timothy Oliphant apparently has smaller teeth than you know because he has veneers to cover them up.
But
So I like
Goggins
to-
leans
I like
into
to-
it.
Oh yeah, Walton
Yeah.
Goggins is. I mean, he's a character actor, so he's not the leading man for the most part.
You guys are
But
gonna
he
bring me
is
right back
so
to Christmas.
underrated. You're gonna talk about what's not Fat Man?
Fat Man. Oh,
Fat Man.
so good. I loved it.
It's good.
It's
But
I love
so
him.
fun.
I remember the first time I saw him. I think was in Shanghai Noon,
Oh.
which
A long time ago.
that was a long time. Yeah, and I remember because he was the one. I can't remember his name in the movie, but he was the one who went on the first little train heist with Owen Wilson, and he shot someone and ruined the whole thing. And Owen Wilson got real mad at him. I'm like 80% sure that was Walton Goggins.
Yeah,
But
sounds correct
I've
enough.
loved him ever since.
So it's Fat Man without a space, just Fat Man?
Just Fat Man.
Just Fat Man, okay. Because if you Google Fat Man, you get a bunch
Just get
of
pictures of me.
terrible pictures. Like,
Yeah,
Oh,
don't do
sure.
that.
like horrifying.
you get
pictures.
mine and Nick's holiday calendar.
Oh my god.
Next year we'll do it.
I wonder if we could sell that in our merch
Right?
site. Yeah.
One of a kind.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyways, we've already digressed into nothingness
yeah.
at this point.
Well, so Cam asked me out of the blue if I have any questions for you about your interracial marriage, which like not
Doesn't
specifically
sound awkward.
like, hey, do you have any specific questions for these people about their interracial marriage? No. Like, I did not come prepared for today's
Well,
lesson.
So when we were talking about it, it was I forget what the segue was, but Nick had talked about how they'd experienced racism, and so after they got married and how that looked, and it was, in my opinion, not what I expected to hear. And so that's kind of the part of it is, we live in a very strange culture right now, which is in some ways post-racial and then also pre-racist, like post-racist and pre-racist at the same time, or middling. Like I'm not sure how to even describe where we are because they're pushing the race stuff so much.
Right.
But it is interesting because, I married a white woman. So the only looks we get is dudes checking her out. Like, it's not like, oh, this is a weird thing to see, except for when we have all 5 kids out, then we get looks for that. Like, what are you,
These
Mormon?
damn quiverful people trying to take over our country.
But so that was that. I think I remember that was one of the questions was, how has it worked for you guys in this culture? Because I think it's even shifted since you've been married, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Since we've been married, it's probably not as important as the past 2 years.
Interesting. Like, things have gotten better or worse in the last 2 years? Or different?
I'll
just
let
different?
Liz answer questions so I don't walk
So-
all over her.
So I mean, it's just gotten more awkward because it went from, the occasional person with the idea of like, oh, well, you shouldn't be with her. We need good Black women kind of, comments.
Right.
To like straight up you know, you are the worst thing in the world because you are a white person, and you being with her is oppressive just on the face of it. No questions asked. Doesn't matter why. Doesn't matter how it happened. That kind of commentary.
Off the bat, that's not, I guess, what I would expect in my like, I guess, my imagination of what kind of racism you would receive. It would be the other side. In my Hollywood created imagination, it would be that people saying those things, but in reverse. That it would be, you know, because that's like, I guess, like, I have this like 1950s version of racism in my mind. And I was actually having a conversation about this the other day, how my racism is probably out of the, not my racism, but the racism that I imagine is out of date.
Well, and you
I keep my
understand why
racism
that is?
always updated.
Because Jess, like me, grew up in a world where we were taught not to give a shit about any of this. And so when I was a kid, I was pissed at my parents that I wasn't black because I couldn't be in Boys to Men as a white person. I wouldn't have matched.
I too am angry that I was not in Boys to Men. Continue.
But we grew up in a world where it was just fucking stupid. Like, not to say that there weren't racists of our generations. I think there's always going to be people with stupid, shitty ideas. But by and large, we moved past it.
Yeah.
And then in our 30s, this thing fucking happened where they flipped the script on our generation entirely and said, oh, well, no, everything you think is wrong. That's why we're fucked again. Like, wait. Now we're racist because we see people as equals and we don't think about race all the time.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Well, and that's what
it's a sick fucking game that they played on us.
Yeah, and it's for me, you know, I grew up in Alabama, which everyone thinks of, except for Mississippi maybe, as the most racist place in America. Sure. And I did not hear anyone that I knew be racist whatsoever until I was a freaking adult, until I was in my 20s. And I was on a tour bus driving north, and that's when I started hearing it after I passed the Mason-Dixon line. It was wild.
Yeah.
It was
wild. I grew up in upstate New York, and I'll tell you, of course there are racists out there. I mean, I'll tell you, I've heard my family say dumb shit. But the thing that's different, and they try, like, they want you to not think about, is that with race, anyone who says one of the good ones is inherently not racist.
Yeah.
They correlate in their head skin color with a bunch of traits, and it's the traits that they hate, not the skin color. There are genuine people that just fucking hate the skin color for being the skin color. You can't do shit about those people. Those people are stupid. Now, you can break up the correlation for someone else. That person can learn. That person can be accepting. That you can get rid of that and work with it. But if you don't, if you just attack, hey, well, guess what? You're just gonna support their fears and their thoughts in your own head. Like they're going to end up being more racist by the time things are done if you don't understand what you're working with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Texas, and it wasn't until I came up to Ohio that I really experienced like the weird racism, at least from people who weren't brown. Brown people in Texas had all sorts of problems with me.
So tell me about that.
Because we were bookish kids, we were quiet, we were well behaved, and all of that was white people stuff. Yes, and so now the fact that they're making that stuff almost legally like white people stuff is really weird to me, because it's like the entire culture is taking up this ridicule that I heard from like schoolyard bullies as a kid. It's just nonsense.
One of the things,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I remember growing up that the adults in my life would fall all over themselves to say things like sort of like performative anti-racism. Yeah. And so I don't think it's new. I do remember like my aunts and uncles and my stepmother, being like, well, in this house, we don't see color. And I do remember those kinds of things, but it wasn't, it was meant to train the kids, because they had come up in a different time. They'd come up in like the 60s and 70s. Things were different then. And they didn't want, so they had things a certain way. They didn't want us to be that way. And then we weren't. And we grew up with this whole different mentality. And then, as Nick said, in our 30s, somewhere along the line, the script flipped, and it was like, no, you're actually exactly like they were in the 1960s. It's like, well, I mean, how would you even combat that? because it's not like you can say, okay, sure, we are like this. How do we undo it? Because there's nothing there to undo. We don't have the mentality of people in the 60s. We don't have separate living spaces. We don't,
Well,
I mean,
but they're trying
some
to make it so that we do. They need safe spaces now.
Right.
So and so what I'm seeing is what's it called? There's a word for it.
Jim
See, I
Crow?
don't even know. No, not specifically
Segregation?
Jim Crow. Segregation. So
Yeah.
segregation is being reintroduced, sort of like
Mhm.
in a different way. Whereas I've been trained my entire life to see segregation as a bad thing. And now I'm being told, no, we need to be segregated from you because you're basically like the cartoon version of a racist that you've seen on television, but you don't know it.
Right.
And I feel like that's really difficult to, like, especially when we have like a young generation of kids who already have a lot of trouble with identity. This is being like ingrained in their identity that they're this
And
way.
you mentioned the key word here, the important word, kids.
Yeah.
Look, I could give two shits what anyone thinks of me and my beautiful wife. I'm more than happy to spend the rest of our life together, doing whatever we can to make each other happy and ignore all the fucking morons out there. And there are plenty of them on all
Yeah.
sides of the aisle. That said, now I have a daughter
Yeah.
who doesn't belong to either of our tribes. She's not
Mhm.
white. She's not black. And now, as they're fueling up in our country, bringing the hatred from one side to the other, to both sides, back and forth, what does my daughter do? Like, she doesn't belong to a side. Like this race war, or whatever the fuck it is that they're trying to bring to the forefront. Like, my kid has no place in that world. Period.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, no form of retreat from it. Like, so like I'm enforced in a position where like I have to teach my daughter like all of the racist bullshit in history
Yeah.
in an effort to try and like, hey, honey, you get to have the baggage of everything. You get black baggage and white baggage. Hell, why don't we just go and like bring in some Korean people? You have Korean baggage too, just to fucking really
Yeah.
maximize all the world hatred on you. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, that was speaking of your daughter and the being biracial and kind of in this middle area. I had a friend growing up who was biracial, but he was raised by a very white father. Like,
Mhm.
and I don't mean bookish. I just mean like this dude danced worse than Carlton. Like he did the Carlton dance poorly. He was that white.
Gotcha.
But it was so interesting to me because I saw like throughout his life him kind of oscillating between the two tribes,
Mhm.
because he would go in one place and he would be more accepted by black people, and he'd go in another place and he'd be more accepted by white people. And so I can definitely see how that would be frustrating. And one of the things that I've heard from, not specifically him, but from other typically more light-skinned black people, is the issue of colorism. And it's not something I've ever spoken on, not really my place, I don't feel like, but I'm curious about it. Is that something you've experienced, Lizzie, this kind of colorism?
So how old was Irma when she first experienced colorism?
She
Two?
was maybe 2 or 3.
Tell us
Can we
what this is.
real quick, real
Okay.
quick, because I don't really know what it is. Can you tell me what colorism is?
So colorism is is basically discriminating against another person of color because they are darker, lighter, behave more
Gotcha.
or less culturally black. So
you see, you can take white people out of the equation and everyone's still racist.
kind of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at other countries, you can always ask them, who do your people hate? And it's always the people on the other side of the border, regardless of where they are. They're like, we don't hate them. We just think they're really stupid and are dumb
like
and horrible people.
They're like less
English
good than us.
The English and the French still hate
Yeah.
each other for no
The
other
Irish
reason than
in the English, the Scottish in the
right.
English,
Speaking
America
of which,
in the English. Everyone hates the English.
I actually drink French vodka, everybody. Just throwing it out there.
Is that a thing?
French vodka.
Ooh.
Go look
I
it
believe
up.
the word is anathema. But continue.
So colorism is so like you said, my understanding has always been not so much. I've always heard of it used less culturally and more just pure skin tone. Like
Well,
there's the high yellow and
yeah.
red bones, and like these are words I've never heard in my entire life until I was talking to black people, and they were like, "Oh yeah, there's racist black people against other black people."
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
what?
You want to hear about the day I wanted to sign up and join the Proud Boys?
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
So Liz comes back from the park.
Right.
Allow me to add to this. So I don't know if anyone remembers Tamir Rice.
Yeah,
the
The little
black
boy
kid.
with the
Yes.
So the park that Tamir Rice was killed in is actually a park we used to play in back in the day.
It was the closest
Like,
park to
okay.
our house at the time.
Yes. So
Yeah.
Liz would
Oh,
bring him to
damn.
yes.
Yeah.
And so Liz comes back one day, and she's kind of like being coy about something that happened. And she's like, "Well, Irma was getting pushed around and like yelled at like by these like slightly older black kids, and the mom was just fucking
Okay.
watching it like nothing was happening." Like,
Yeah, she totally because she was, a light-skinned black girl, and she's pretty. She's a cute little girl, and they just kind of they felt like that was some sort of affront to them.
well, she
that
doesn't
just
talk street. She doesn't talk urban.
existed.
She
Well,
talks
yes,
like white
also
people.
that. So and
So
they're
your
just pushing her
daughter-
around on the playground as a 3-year-old or something because
Oh my god.
they felt that she was, I don't know, something.
Not
Yeah,
black
and her
enough.
mom was, not black enough. And her mom was literally sitting there watching it. And I'm just like, I don't even know how to react to this. This is ridiculous. So,
Thank God it's Liz. I'd have beat the shit out of the woman.
yeah.
Like I would have went to jail for assault watching that happen.
Didn't seem constructive. So we just left. But yeah, that was, and that's a different experience than I had. I mean, obviously my cultural, representation didn't match, I guess, the color of
Right.
my skin. So I experienced it to a certain extent, but it's a whole different ballpark with her because people assume because the historical favor was towards people who were lighter skinned because
Mhm.
The paper bag
they
test
could
and all
pass
that.
better. Yeah, exactly.
Right, right.
There's still an assumption among people, especially now that people are sort of focusing so much more on that era of Black experience. There's just that idea that, oh, well, you're light skinned, you automatically think you're better than us. It's so weird.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, especially since a 3-year-old's like language development is like not even like fully there. So the idea that your 3-year-old was speaking in a way and articulating in a way that
Jesse,
made these people have superiority complex
This is my kid.
Well, yeah,
kind of
she-
says something. Right, I get you, but like a 3-year-old doesn't even have like their full language skills yet. So like
she's pretty impressed. Like, so you have to understand, I was always very expectant of my child to talk. Until something can talk, it's just a cat to me.
yeah.
So if
no,
she wanted
seriously,
me
it
to
was
have
like a
any
survival
respect,
mechanism.
she'll bring that up in therapy like
oh, absolutely,
30 years down
Yeah.
the road.
absolutely.
If she wanted to interact with her dad at all, she was gonna have to
How
Learn how to
learn
fucking
how to
talk.
speak.
My father
Okay.
would dangle like toys in front of me, like laser pointer, like
It's more of, I guess, you're over there. You can't talk. I have no, what do we have to do together?
right. So until she could pontificate on current events.
Pretty
Day.
much. Pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, I got you.
Which, by the way,
I
I'd have treated any adult that same way too. If you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
talk, then what good are you?
that's fair.
There is one thing I wanted to say though, because I was just thinking back through some of the people that I've known, not super well, but like online, who have been in interracial relationships, and what I've noticed is that when it's and this is not all of them, absolutely, I'm not painting with a broad brush here. I'm saying these people that I know, when it's a white woman with a black man, there tends to be a lot more performative victimhood. Have you noticed that? Because I know that I knew 4 or 5 different people who would go on Facebook and tell all of these stories about how people looked at them and they knew that they were being racist against them because they were together and their husband was black. Is that something do you know a lot of people in that kind of situation that
maybe can I frame this a little bit too, just to make it a little broader? Is there a difference when the male to female role is flipped?
I'm just
is
saying
it
I don't like white women.
I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair.
I mean, I don't know why you would.
I know where you're going.
When you see what the black girl's packing in the back, man, it's all
Right.
over.
So
Oh gosh.
like when the sex dynamics are flipped and the male is black and the female is white, is this received differently by people?
I mean, historically, it was a thing, and I think because the white experience, the white women now are trying to politically like separate themselves from the white people
Yeah.
Okay.
who were the bad white people. I think it becomes a thing to kind of help them to take on those victim points
Yeah.
that they don't feel like they can get otherwise. I don't know.
How about we focus? Let me explain it this way. What it probably seems more apt to me is that when you look at who the cameras pay attention to,
Mhm.
I have absolutely had black men screaming at me and Liz walking from across the street, "Yo, homie, give her back."
Wow.
And I think that there is a sense from people that give a shit about things like this that the opposite is trying to steal the women away from the culture.
Right.
Like, put it this way: there's only so many good-looking women, and if you're taken out of that pool, you're making it smaller for the people that give a shit about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now,
Right.
there tend to be more white men that you're going to hear from that say that. So now, when you flip the script to the other direction, what side are you going to hear from? You're going to hear from the white women.
Yeah.
So they're going to be the ones that you're hearing that story from. It's not going to be the black man that's talking about that because he didn't steal shit. It's the people who are accusing the other side of stealing, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and what I mean is these people that I knew, and there were, like I said, there were a couple of them. They'd always, it was always one of those stories you read that reads like it's fiction, like it's a yarn rather than a real story, if that makes sense. And everything was always really made to be bigger, and it's like there's just no way some of these things you're saying happened. And so that's that's why I said performative, because these are very specific people that I'm talking about who were like, hey, give me my victim points because white man looked at me in the grocery store and I could tell that he didn't do this little gesture or that because he's racist. And I'm just like, have y'all noticed that in particular? I know you've been in a different frame and you've received it from people in one way, which I'd like to, like Nick gave a great example of that. I'm curious about how that looks, but like, have you
yelling across the street, give her back? How that looks like is,
wild.
I got a sweet piece of ass, bro. I don't fucking care if you want her back or not. It's mine.
Well,
but have you gotten a lot of that? And does it look different when they do stuff specifically to you?
I mean, I've heard people, say the whole, well, have you even tried a black man? That sort of thing. Before, like,
look, I've tried. She's not into it. You just
must be uninformed. And that's the thing that really bothers me the most. It's like, oh, you assume it's ignorance or some sort of internalized racism or like a lack of whatever, self-respect or something, that you couldn't possibly make this choice for yourself given, your available examples, options, and say like, this is what I want. And that's just so, I mean, that in itself is so insulting. And I don't really care who it's coming from.
Well, like if Bill Burr, was it last year, when he had a big thing because people were giving him shit about him and his wife, and he said the thing that like I because it's something only that I've experienced a lot on the internet. And by God, if any of these people ever met me in real life and tried to say this shit, that'd be a fun trip to the ER for him. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, no.
But the joke that I was making about my leftist friends, wearing off on me, and I've decided that my wife is stupid because she married a racist man. That's what you get from a lot of the people of the left, is that she has internalized her racism and is too fucking stupid, apparently, to realize what's good for her and married a white man who's just colonizing her.
Right.
Like the idea that I've colonized my wife, and that the way that we act out our racism now as white people is just by going and taking the black women and making them our property.
Yeah.
And
As if-
the agency that fucking takes
Right.
from the woman.
Right. Right.
I mean, woke level -4,000. Just holy shit, you're a horrible human being if you ever say that to anyone. Just outright.
And
And
it
if you ever
bases
say it to my face, I will beat the hell out of you in a way that you've never imagined a fat guy could beat up somebody before.
you have a low center of gravity. I'm sure you could do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Because once the ball starts rolling, it don't stop.
Exactly.
But it bases the entire idea that we're choosing our partners with the baseline of race as the beginning, having nothing to do with like their personalities or like our individual characteristics, who we might like. I mean, like, I'm with my husband because he makes me laugh, like regardless of the frame, if someone made me laugh as hard as my husband does, that's like so comedy is my baseline, which I don't know if that's like what everybody should base their relationships on, but it like the idea that, he is only my husband because of the lack of melanin or the quality of the melanin in his skin is very insulting. It takes away all of my agency as a human being.
Mhm.
Period.
How many white women have yelled at you, Lizzie, give him back?
Well, no, and that's the thing. It's just like
Let's be honest, guys. We all know that ain't happening.
Because your jeans are not ripped enough. We
Well, no.
discussed this before we
when
started
he was
recording.
on stage, I have legit had ladies been like, "Oh, girl," I'm just like, "Yeah, I know. Shut your face. I know. That's why I snatched him up."
Because I think that women, I mean, I don't want to speak for Liz here. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I might be onto something here. Laughter is so much more important. Like how a guy makes you laugh, how laughing is the next best thing to coming. I'm sorry, I'll just say it. Like if you can make me laugh, I know you can make me come. So, I'm just throwing that out there.
I think that if like I were to like, I love my wife in a very, very ridiculous and deep way. And I think if I were to ever describe why I think we're married, it would be the most banal, boring sounding thing in the fucking world.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it's like we met each other at the right point in our lives, and
Yeah.
our goals aligned. And we were just looking for a teammate to help us do the shit that we wanted to do and accomplish in life. And that was it. Like,
that's really
sure.
important. And then staying married when your goals continue to change together in the same way.
Her
is
having
really
a sweet
important
ass
too.
and me looking like a hobbit might factor in there a little bit in the
Just a
aesthetic
little bit.
categories, but
Buddy, we're dwarves.
I mean, whatever.
I was more hobbity when we
He was
met.
more hobbity
Yes, I'm
back
more
in the-
dwarvish
back
now.
in the day. But no, it's funny because I was thinking about this, like, how would I even approach this story? And like when I got to the point where he and I met, like I realized like there was genuine affection and like a camaraderie that we had like immediately, and I didn't even know how to trust it at the time because it just seemed so like unbelievable. Like how was I was in a relationship before him for 10 years, and we had didn't have affection. We had like, okay, we're in this relationship, so I guess we had enough camaraderie to stay together, but didn't have the affection. I was in a relationship after that. We had the affection. There was no camaraderie. He was like, as soon as I find a chick with bigger boobs, I'm leaving.
Nuts.
And then I met Nick, and it was immediately just like there.
Hey,
and I'm just
babe,
like,
let's go build a hobbit hole and fucking be cool, weird, artsy people.
yeah, and I'm just like, how is this possible? Like you just immediately he's just, I know he's going to be there. How does that work? It was miraculous, and I didn't believe it, but I mean the time is kind of told.
It's miraculous in this day and age, especially with the way that like promiscuity is celebrated, that people do find each other, they fall in love, and that they stay together. When you layer those things together, it's miraculous. It's nothing short of that, because it's not the most common story. now.
Well-
The most common story is your goals don't align, you fall out of love, and people get divorced.
Well,
And
for me, like and one of the thing I'll tell anyone is like, I always hear people talk about so and so cheated on so and so, and it's like, well, you have an expectation of, I guess, something. Nobody ever talks about what the fuck cheating is in a relationship, because everyone's got a different line in which that is.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, depending on the situation, like I will be the first to tell you, I'm not the most attractive man my wife's ever gonna have a shot at. And if fucking Sean Astin shows up and is like, "Hey, babe," and she wants to go have a
Wow.
night with Sean Astin, I'm not gonna
Whoa.
stop that. Whatever, take some pictures. It'll be cool. We'll make some money on it.
Wait. Just to be clear, is Sean Astin your like one celebrity?
Oh,
No.
no.
Okay,
No.
That would
we
be
had a
really
list at
weird.
one point.
Wouldn't
and
it?
He was not on it.
Okay, all right, cool.
But
Right.
my point is that, like, having frank and honest discussions about what your expectations are of the other human being
Yeah.
are way more important than probably like half the shit that people focus on. Like, I hear people talking about like, well, we have such a good time together. Okay, well, there's going to come a point in time in your life where jobs and the kids, and you're not going to have fun together.
No.
Because you're not going to see fucking each other. Is what you have going to sustain you through that? Like, well, we haven't had fun, and it's just maybe it's time to move on because we don't have that relationship yet. I don't know. Like, I have fun with my wife and I enjoy being around my wife, but that's not the thing that keeps me there for sure.
Right.
It's the strength of, more than anything, probably the strength of trust and like understanding that this person's here for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And-
it's, when you talk about expectations, I think that that's really important, and I think that it's interesting to me because regardless of what your expectations are, if you want a successful marriage, you have to somewhat bow to the expectations of the other. So, like, if
Absolutely.
my wife says, for me, you looking at pornography is a form of cheating,
Mhm.
then I have to take that into account.
Mhm.
I can't just be like, well, no, it's not. That's stupid. Because regardless of what the reasoning is for it, that's in her emotionally, that's where she is. And I have to respect that.
And my line is, I just better get video of whatever happens.
Wow. Because you need to send it to the haters.
Right.
That's whatever. Look, I better get some enjoyment. If she's getting fucked, I at least want to get a little enjoyment out of it, I guess. Maybe that's where my line is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rub one out in the corner, whatever.
Right,
It's not like I
right.
see her all that often anyways.
So many great ideas being thrown around.
Right.
Well, at least you're not like a alpha male personality who pretends that he doesn't like that sort of
That's
thing.
the saddest
and then
fucking thing
does
about that. I would
it.
have fucking owned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like getting getting a fucking big old thing up my ass. Who gives a shit?
Yep.
Like, why does that make you any less of a man? I really don't think it does. Don't give a shit. So you're not quote unquote heterosexual. What the fuck's that worth anymore?
Yeah, but it's
I
just
think
like
a
the
bigger
marketing
audience.
of it. What the hell?
I think it does when you market yourself as being like the ultimate straight man and you have some homophobia in your rhetoric. And then you turn around and it's like, oh, you did porn with guys. Kind of throws a wrench in your whole image there.
But that's my point.
should just be
Lying is the big fucker, dude.
Yeah.
I think you had a much bigger thing if he was teaching you how to be a Chad while being into fucking
Right.
dudes. Why not? Seems
So
like
I
a
have-
bigger market.
I have recently read the Iliad and gotten like super involved in the story of Achilles. And Achilles had a partner named Patroclus. Patroclus and him were not just like best friends, right? Because it's ancient Greece.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like the 2004 film Troy, where Brad Pitt played Achilles, they sort of artlessly explained that Patroclus was his younger cousin, which is,
wow.
completely sort of like erasure of the fact that Achilles and Patroclus were lovers, as opposed to the idea that Achilles is such a man that fucking women just wouldn't do it for him. Like, you know what I'm saying?
So
like,
I've always explained this. When you look back at 70s rockers, everyone's like, "Oh, dude, all those guys were gay, Mick Jagger and David Bowie," and I'm like, "No, you misunderstand. they'd fucked every woman on earth. There was no conquest left but fucking men and animals. So like
that man gets it. This guy gets it. No, I'm
Like-
saying, like, you're such a man. At some point, it's like women aren't even going to do it for you anymore. Like, you have to like
I've
dominate
done all
another
that.
man, right? So really,
well, and that's the thing. If you're really into the machismo side of it, there probably is certainly an element of that. Like you're gonna be the fucking power top, like,
right?
Because that's all that you can get out of it anymore.
Right.
Like that's what real conquest means. Now, granted, you're talking about people that have really sad, strange fucking sex lives. If that's where we're getting to, by the way, but like if that's how we have to look at it,
we are also entering this like weird place now in our society where like the types of sex that are acceptable are like crossing the boundary into the unacceptable.
Yeah.
And so it's like a free for all where it's like, oh, we're and I'm not even talking about the baseline like homosexuality or promiscuity. Like I could fathom that people can do whatever they want. I don't know that it's good for you to be promiscuous, but
so this is the infiltration of like punk or the whole counterculture becoming the culture.
Mhm.
So like I came up throughout all that. Like, and the bottom line is you don't have a culture if the counterculture is the culture. It will fall apart absolutely inevitably. Like you need to have the foundations, and yes, you can chip away at the pieces and guide it. But when your counterculture is everything, you have nothing to stand on. Like I'm personally someone that has always been into the liminal. I like people that push boundaries. Like that's why the queer culture, like drag queens and all that shit's always been endlessly fucking fascinating to me.
Mhm.
Like while I could classify myself as bisexual because I'm into fucking weird shit and I like to push the boundaries. I like to flirt with it. Like I like to see the opposites in people. The problem is that when I'm the norm, we have a lot of fucking problems. Culture.
Yo.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know if you've ever heard. I hate talking about him, but Thaddeus Russell, he'll talk about shamanism and what those people represent in society. But you can't have everyone be a shaman; everything would fucking go to chaos.
Right. I agree. And you sort of like found the point that I was trying to make. And it goes beyond that, though. It starts to cross the line where depravity, like real depravity, starts becoming more acceptable. And I don't think there's been a month gone by in the last year and a half where one of the mainstream news agencies didn't try to put an article out that said, is pedophilia really that bad?
Right.
It's like, yes, it is actually that bad. Like,
This is a concept I like talk about with my friend Buck Johnson from over at what's the podcast, Liz?
Rebel something?
No, he used to be. Buck Johnson used to do the dude counter something. Yeah, it's over on Thad's network. Go look it up. It's pissing me off. I can't remember.
Speaking of,
yeah. But me and him talk about like having come up in the punk rock scene where the dudes with tattoos. And, like, I used to be weird with my tattoos. I'm not anymore, and it's weird.
Yeah.
And it's like that's the degradation, like
counterflow.
And
counterflow,
so this is
exactly.
I think that there is a certain place for societal shame that keeps a culture together. And I'm not saying that like shame is always a good thing or that it's not overused or abused. But I think that there is an overproliferation of like legalism laws that have arisen in the place where shame used to keep order in a society.
Maybe it's the whole like it's what postmodernism in the sense that people understand it now has done. See, the punk rockers, the shamans, is that what we could call this. They poke and they see the weaknesses in society, and society can kind of change, become more accepting, become stronger, and push back on certain cultural things. But it happens in a way in which society can deal with it. We crossed the Rubicon where you're just whole cloth taking chunks out of society, and now there's nothing to stand up on because everything just became the outsider. There is no culture anymore. The person I love listening to on this is what's the is it Jack the Perfume Nationalist or whatever it is?
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's awesome. If you've never listened to his podcast or heard him anywhere else, he gets really, really into like what the left has done to culture. And it's super interesting listening to somebody talk about it, because especially because, like I said, I'm someone who's always been of the counterculture, and to kind of see what it's done to culture, to just follow that as like the main culture has done, is rough.
So would you, as a person who identifies as counterculture, would you say that it has almost become counterculture to be more traditional now?
Oh, absolutely. Trad people
Yeah.
are fucking weird.
Yeah.
Every time I see one of them, I'm like, where did you come from? How did you end up like that?
Right. Because it seems to me like what is now not acceptable, what normal people don't want to tolerate anymore, are male-female marriages with children and stable homes. Like that seems to be the anathema of the culture.
Well, let's turn that back on you. One of the reasons I've always felt like a kinship with you, Jesse, is because you, like me, came from like behind that wall of what the left is, which is frankly the dominant culture.
Yeah. And
you've gone pretty trad in the past couple years.
Yeah.
From like where you came from. I mean, what does that same question face back to you look like?
Yeah, so I came through this road because of a snowstorm. I know that sounds weird, but I got trapped in a house for 5 days with no food. And shit got real. So after that, I had a whole Scarlett O'Hara moment where I declared, God is my witness, I will never go hungry again, and decided to move out of I lived in downtown Atlanta. I moved out of downtown Atlanta. I got a house in the country. I started gardening. I started looking into like raising my own food, chickens, goats, all that kind of stuff. And so I went to a crunchy culture first.
Do you got your seedlings started?
Yes, I have broccoli, kale, and lettuces going under a light right now. Yeah,
because it's out in the greenhouse.
Because it's Georgia, so I get to start a little bit earlier than other people. Neener.
We're Florida, you never have to stop.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. And so I got married to my long-term sweetheart. So, we've been together since 2006. It's going to be nearly 20 years. It sort of just happened incidentally. With maturity came a more sort of trad style of life. So it was never done on my part as the effort to be counter to the culture. As a matter of fact, that all happened sort of as an undercurrent to the way that my life just happened to be trending, and all of the sudden I'm counterculture for it, and I'm like, I'm not prepared for this, because I used to hang out with drag queens in the back of bars, and that to me was the counterculture thing, and now I'm raising chickens and I'm married, and that's counterculture. Like, that confuses me, to be honest.
Well, and what's weird to me is for all intents and purposes, I am trad as hell. Like, everything about my life is just traditional as hell.
But then I've got understand why Cam likes me.
He's a good boy.
I just love
it. Are you trying to save me, Cam?
Not yet. We'll get there.
Yeah.
There's a line.
Good luck. She's been working for a decade. It ain't done yet.
Oh no. I know whose job it is to save you. That's not my job.
But it's funny because the outside view of me is very like, I have tattoos all over my arms. I have long hair. I have a long beard. Like, I don't look like I should be that traditional.
Well, that's not the traditional view of Jesus, minus the tattoos.
If you look into Revelation, it does talk about his name written on his legs. So technically, he had tattoos.
So wait, have you ever watched? Did you ever watch the American Dad episode of like of the Rapture?
No, I love that show though.
It's a two-part episode where like they go for the whole what's that book series, Liz?
Left Behind.
Left Behind.
They go Left Behind, where like they're late to church and they get a crappy parking space and all the pews are taken up. So Stan convinces her to like go have a quickie in like the broom closet at the church, because he's all pissed off. So they do, and as they come out, everyone's gone, and then they walk out the front of the church and everyone's being lifted into the sky and they're left behind.
Oh, no.
Okay, so they do, and this whole thing, Stan ends up like trying to this guy pops up saying he's Jesus and he's holding these giant, like, arena sized, come meet Jesus things. And like he propositions this guy in the back of the stage. Like, please, Jesus, take me up. The guy like basically is a charlatan, and he ends up blowing the guy. Meanwhile, what's her name? Francine actually meets Jesus at a Waffle House next to the arena. and so she becomes Jesus's girlfriend in the apocalypse. And so it's just Stan ends up becoming like he ends up what is he like ends up becoming Snake Plissken in Jesus' army. Okay, against the demons.
Oh wow.
It's hilarious, and like because it does like the whole post-apocalyptic story, gets into like all of the lore and shit. But there's the great moment where Stan punches him and then he turns the other cheek, so then he punches him from the other side. He's like, "Oh, dude, you're not gonna do that."
One thing, just to kind of like round off the counterculture topic, because this is something that I think about a lot, and because you and I do have that sort of kinship where we've moved from one side to the other, I guess. I
think I was just left on this side more than anything.
I agree with that sentiment. And so I'll ask you if you've thought about this in the way that I have. I do know by being a student of history that when a culture tends to swing too far to one side, there's usually a backswing, a counter swing where people are like, okay, enough of this. And that swing is usually hard. Mm-hmm. I fear that the right sort of because we're pushing very far left, that the sort of like correction that comes will be an overtly right correction.
So this is something I've talked about in like the School Sucks group a lot, is that there's a part of me that wants to like side with, because the right is losing right now. I want to side with them, and there's that temptation for me. Mm-hmm, but then there's the part of me that remembers the God hates fags shit.
Yep.
From back in the day. It's like yeah, but we're not on the same team either necessarily, right. Are we? So I'm just kind of alone. Like, I don't got a team over here, guys. Y'all need to just fucking stop being crazy. Come back to center where I can just be a little weird.
Because I don't want things to go full on, and what are they called? Like traditional family values by law. I like there to be all these different types.
Well, like
of
I said,
people.
I feel very strongly that like you need to have that in the society, because that's how societies grow and change and become better. I believe that. But if the society collapses, well, then you're back to square one, and it's like the old thing, like you don't tear down a fence until you understand why that fence was there in the first place.
Right.
We've torn down all the fences like in our culture. It's like, well, it's probably not a great idea. Like when you start having like a self-sustaining lifestyle where you're actually like having to put the work in as far as like making your own food, you realize extremely quickly why gender roles developed the way that they did. Oh, because absolutely. My husband has physical strength that I don't have. I need him to do things that I can't do without like expensive modern equipment. So I do recognize like the value of that kind of like thinking of like traditional types of gender roles. But at the same time, like I don't want it to go so far that like we are actually experiencing like that the couples that are non-traditional, such as yourselves, such as gay people, are going to be aggressed upon. And I think that that's a distinct possibility. If we push as far to the right as we are seeing the left push to the left right now, that's a distinct possibility. It's something I like keeps me up thinking about it. I mean, I'm going to be honest. If I see hate coming, it's coming from the left, certainly right now. I really don't see, at least in the race sense, I certainly don't see the right going there, because really,
look at
most of the right
conservatives
just want to be left the fuck alone. Most of us want. And it's gonna be real hard to give a shit when we're living on our farm, raising our chickens and growing our food. Like,
true.
That's our parents, Gen X, and like our generation, because you guys are probably older millennials, right? I would figure.
Yeah, I think you're like a year older than me or something like that.
Okay, fair. So you guys are, in that same. Okay, so you're older millennials, basically.
Yes.
So that's our generation. The people from the directly after that on, who are now, in their 20s, they're going to be having families. They're going to be raising them. That new generation of children that they're raising them, they're being raised with distinctly racist ideologies. So as we get older, that group of people grows. The people who believe that the races should be separated is actually going to grow. And so I think this is something that we're not counting on, because right now the dominant culture amongst most of the people who are in the prime of their lives is that we don't care about race. We just want to be left alone for the most part, like left or right. I think most people agree with that, but that is not the ideology of the younger generation. It's literally like, if you're white, you're Satan. The races should be separated. All of the like sort of horror things that we were taught were like this vestige of the past. Some black and white video of like the civil rights era is actually like being ingrained in children now. And I don't think that people realize like this is what's being taught to them by their teachers.
See, here's the thing. I think it's number one, like it hasn't worked. In a sense, it has in the short term, but like one of the things the pandemic did is it became way too obvious what the fuck they were doing in schools. You get a lot of people like, no, we're putting the kibosh on this. And another place you can see it is, have you watched any of the shit being said about the new Lord of the Rings movie?
No, I found out it existed yesterday.
Okay.
So.
Well, the important thing is that like before they ever released the thing, they already had the articles written for Vanity Fair about how the racist trolls were. And here's the beauty of it. Everybody, white, black, brown, didn't matter. It's like, that's fucking bullshit. This has nothing to do with race. Y'all are just fucking destroying Tolkien.
Yeah. So you can all be united in hating the new Lord of the Rings series.
Well, but the thing is it's a litmus for something else. It's a litmus for the fact that we all see that it's stupid. Like our entire generation, which before those millennials or before those Gen Zers are adults, they're gonna have to deal with us. And fewer of the fucking crazies. And most of us think it's stupid. The problem is that the few people with microphones right now, or have had microphones historically, they're nuts. But it's becoming less and less tolerable because it becomes less and less doable. Like
it's Gen Zers, but it's also that like aged hippie sect too, like the graying hippies that like probably were around the Haight-Ashbury in the 60s and 70s. They're perpetuating a lot of this too, like specifically racist rhetoric.
Boomers.
Boom. Yeah, I mean, but there's a specific set of boomers too.
Yeah, but
like
their generation, the generation that's coming up under us is smaller than our generation. We're smaller than the generation before us. Yeah. When those hippies die out, we're a bigger like we're going to be the dominant generation. More importantly, you have Hispanic cultures are the dominant ones coming in, and that's a very different culture as well.
That's an interesting. That's an interesting.
As much
point
as the left thinks they're winning, that's only because of the way that politics are specifically directed in our country. Like, I agree that if the Republicans would actually pay attention to the Hispanic vote, they'd fucking own it entirely.
Yeah,
because they're all fucking Catholics.
Yeah, this is a point I made yesterday to a friend. Actually, is like how conservative a lot of Latino people are. Like they're not for abortion. They're not for all of this gender stuff. Like
but they're told when they come in by the left that Republicans hate you.
Right.
And the Republicans don't do anything to counteract that message.
Right.
Which, might be part of how the whole system is designed to work, but
yeah.
Well, and that's what the black culture was too. You have to be a Democrat if you're black because, slavery,
Otherwise, you're an Uncle Tom.
Right. And it's funny because I started looking into my own black history this month, because usually I would just be like, oh my gosh, this thing again, where I'm gonna have to watch Roots again, and people want me to be pissed off. Great.
I watch Pootie Tang instead.
But if you look into like the actual history of okay, I'll speak for my individual family. If I look into the history of my individual family after the racism, after the slavery, And yes, were there Jim Crow laws? Were there pockets of like racism in there? Yes, absolutely. But they had land. They grew crops. You know, they had musical people in my family. There was a legacy of strong, healthy, large families, you know, that were growing their own food, that had made a name for themselves, a good name of being, you know, people who could garden well or play an instrument well or whatever. And we're missing out on all of that because we have to focus on, well, you know, the racism.
And where
That's-
was my family when all this was going on, when all the racism in America was going on, Liz?
I probably on a boat somewhere.
Fucking Italy,
Probably-
nowhere near this shit.
Yeah.
So interestingly, my family didn't arrive in the United States until like the 1940s.
We were the 50s,
they were from-
I think. So
Yeah,
the French were here in the 20s, very few of them, and then everybody else was when the Irish and Italians came over.
And I'm Irish and Italian, and so it's like I have this argument with people who I'm not going to argue with these people anymore. I made a vow to myself that there are like reparations arguments that go on Twitter all of the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, you know, like my grandparents didn't even come here until the 1950s. Like, I don't know that like I'm necessarily responsible for systematic racism. Like, it's not something I'm certainly like willing to.
Here's what you say, Jesse. Go, you're right, I'm racist.
You know?
I'm racist. What did you win? Cool.
Right. So
Yeah.
I do
I don't
sort of
care.
admire. I admire that there are some people who have realized that this is a cudgel, that the term racism is being thrown around on people who you know aren't racist, but you know that people will bend over backwards to avoid being called racist.
Right.
So what's funny? Who uses racism anymore? Racist anymore? It's not even the left. Left doesn't even use racist anymore. They gave up on it. Now the media class hasn't caught up with that yet. So you still have people writing articles calling you racist, but nobody who's just a normal person says racist because they devalued it. That's why they've had to move to terrorists. We're all terrorists now, or we're all right-wing extremists.
Right.
Because racist doesn't work anymore. They fucked it over.
Yeah.
That's why every time somebody disagrees with me on Twitter, they tag the FBI. And I'm like, what's the FBI going to do for you right now?
Like, why?
Like, they know I'm a housewife. Like they can't really do anything for me.
I always laugh. If you watch A Scanner Darkly, and in the commentary, they actually talk to what's his name's daughter.
Okay.
And they ask her, you know, about her dad. And one of the things she comes up with is like, so my dad petitioned for 40 years for the FBI to send them everything they had on him. Like through FOIA requests. Like I want everything you have on me. And so like after 40 years of doing this, eventually they sent him an envelope, a big thick packet of every letter he ever wrote to the FBI asking for like all the FOIA requests. And that's all that's in there.
I mean, yeah, so I think a lot of times people give more credit to these government agencies than they actually deserve, and they make them seem like they're these all-powerful, like world-controlling entities, and that's how they want you to think of them. But they're largely staffed by incompetent people, so
they are all seeing, but they're not all parsing.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, they collect everything, but it takes a lot of work to go through all that. So you got to make it really worthwhile for them.
Right.
And oftentimes they're the ones like the big crimes that happen are funded and encouraged by them. Like you can follow the money trail, and a lot of times they find some wingnut out there who they think they can like pressure into doing some kind of crime. They give him the money, the motive, the opportunity for what he would have never otherwise really been involved in.
You mean some autistic or mentally handicapped person, Down syndrome, that they just convinced?
We're not talking about the LP right now. Let's.
Oh goodness.
Hey, look, man, they're on the verge of winning.
Right.
Like either they become a libertarian organization or they're going to completely dissolve. And once again, I am okay with either of those things happening.
But my favorite thing about the FBI is their Twitter account, because every year on the anniversary of Waco, on Martin Luther King Day, any of these like things where they try to be like, oh, we're great, and don't you love the FBI? People bring out the letter where they try to convince MLK to kill himself. They ask, where's the door on the Waco thing? Like there is no a quarter given to them by the internet.
I've been to Waco. I've seen the site. The idea that those people were a danger to anyone is fucking ludicrous.
Yeah.
Bottom
And-
line.
And no one on the internet, at least like the public interaction that they have on Twitter, believes that or gives them any sort of quarter. I don't see a single comment on there being like, thanks, FBI. Thanks for burning 21 children to death. You're awesome. Like, they know that they're awful and that we hate them.
It's
And
because
that's awesome.
there's only one class of people that can make the determination that burning 21 children alive is an acceptable loss. Only one class.
The power
So-
elite.
The left isn't really using racist anymore, but it's also that word itself has been downgraded. But do you remember, I don't know if you've ever seen this or heard any of the songs from it, but do you remember Avenue Q? It was a Broadway show.
yeah.
Yay.
And there's one song from it that and like this is a praised show by everyone in the cultural elite. And there's a song called Everyone's a Little Bit Racist. And it's like, it's amazing to me that in 2004, this was like something that was mentioned. Yeah, people have bad associations with people of different races, and that this comes out sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, we don't want to have this, but there was this kind of understanding that there are different times when people say something, and they may not even mean to be racist or whatever, but it's something that you see in life. And now it's like, I don't think that show would do well these days.
No.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
think
and
it would
that's
make it?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No. I was just gonna say I don't think they could make it Avenue Q
No,
today.
I don't think so. I was just gonna say, like, and that's the thing that gets to me the most. Like, what is the utility of that kind of thinking? Like, is it useful for me to think of myself as, still in the slave class, as just barely being, up from under the boot, or is it more useful to think of, any of the other things that have been gained since then?
Well, it's who it's useful to. See,
absolutely.
Here's what's really useful is you to feel like you can't do any better to a certain part of society. What's even better is when, while you're feeling that, I feel like I have to give up everything I believe I'm capable of and hold myself back. So you think you can't do it, and now I believe that I shouldn't do it. So none of us tries anything.
Right.
And we just stay right here, subservient at the bottom.
Right. It's
And
like a learned paralysis.
Yep. And they ply you with checks in the mail and other things because people can be controlled. It's been
Meanwhile, we're
demonstrated.
not
Very
speaking to our parents, our grandparents, the people who literally dealt with actual racism and made a life for themselves with like actual life skills, like growing something or building a business or something like that.
Well, a lot of the racism, especially it was everywhere. People like to believe that it was quarantined to the South. It was everywhere. You should look at some of the reactions to things up in Chicago and in these other areas around the same time things were happening in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
Like it was not a unique thing, but a lot of it came from the aftermath and the rhetoric of the Civil War. A lot of that what's the word? Contempt.
Blowback? Oh, okay.
Yeah, contempt came from this centralized authority forcing people to do something. People always push back against that, even if morally they're like, okay, this is wrong to do this. There's always going to be a pushback from some father figure telling you what you have to do and how you have to teach your children and how you have to do this and have to do that. I think there are probably a lot of people in those areas during the civil rights era who didn't feel strongly about it outside of that. Or there was this the other day on Twitter, someone had posted this picture. I forget her name. It was the first Black girl who went into a white school, Dorothy something maybe. and there was a picture of a white boy behind her making a goofy face. Like it may be like a kind of mocking style face, but it's like a kid making a goofy face, right? And these people, these 20-something-year-old people in 2022 started trying to find out what this
Who this
boy's
kid is.
name
Oh my
was.
gosh.
And they didn't stop there. They didn't go, hey, we're just going to find out who he is or find his Facebook or his whatever. Because this was 70 years ago, you know? Like this was decades ago. So what they did is they found his either great or regular grandson, connected him to his wife, not related to the man, and then started going on her TikTok and flooding her comments about what's up with your racist grandpa.
Wow.
Trying to cancel someone who was 70 years removed from a kid making a face in a picture and was just married to a guy and she was making like, I think she had on her Facebook photo or whatever, it said something like, oh, I'm against the mandates. And they were like, so obviously she's racist.
Right.
What?
I think that there's just a sense of power to be gained when you can there are pictures of people who were lynched, right? Photographs of all of the, like a person being lynched and then the people all around them. All of the people in those pictures are like smiling, and it's kind of like a shocking thing. Like there's a person hanging, like, why are you all smiling? But it has more to do with group mentality and how when you all feel like you're doing something right together, even if it's horrible, you feed off of each other's energy. And it's like, we have conquered the evil. And so even though what's going on in a lynching photo is obviously like you've killed a man who's probably not done anything wrong, there's still that group mentality of we've gotten together and we've defeated evil. That mentality, I think of that when I see internet mobs, because they're doing the same thing. They're all getting together and feeding off of each other's energy of, not only am I destroying the evil, we're destroying the evil together. And so it's not even that this person is evil, that they've ever done anything wrong, that there's anything to actually like hate them for. It's that we fed off of a group dynamic where we're all the good guy together, which is even, you know.
It reminds me of that quote from Men in Black, you know, that very brilliant and beautiful movie Men in Black, where J and K are sitting on the bench, and Jay, Will Smith's character, says something about, the people can handle knowing that there are aliens. And Kay's character says, a person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it.
Yeah.
And that's true. Yeah. Like mob mentality can make someone go from a truly good person to a monster in seconds.
Right.
It's, I mean, this is a more individual situation, but there was a guy I knew in high school, great guy, wonderful guy. And I one of my best friends at one point. And this is like forced group and mob dynamics, but he joined the army. And then he came back from boot camp and from like a tour, and he came talking about how he bought this knife and he can't wait to put it in some raghead's head. And he told me this story about how he was driving the Humvee, and when you're driving a Humvee in one of those city streets, because of IEDs, potential bombs, you can't stop or slow down. And I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. And he goes, yeah, but there was this one day these kids started running across the road and I sped up. And I was like, I knew you, but now you're the most distasteful person I've ever known.
Well, it's because he's not that person anymore. Like the first thing the military does is strip away your person.
Right.
Like you are a tool, and they need to get you down to the bare. That's why the hazing shit that they do works the way it does.
It's just like institutionalized mob mentality. It's this really horrible, guided and specific thing, and it's like
another level to it. David Gornowski talks about this, and it's not simply group. It's not the group dynamic alone. You have to be convinced that what you're doing is the right thing. So even though on the outside and through a historical lens, you can look at something and say, no, you are clearly doing something evil. In that moment, together, they have to believe they're doing good. People won't do evil, not consciously. They think they're doing it. Even when they do evil, they think they're doing good. The Nazis all thought that they were doing what was right. They all thought it. Even the ones in the concentration camps who were doing abominable things.
I think
thought
Joseph
that they were
Mengele
doing-
was just a horrible fucking person, though.
Maybe on the individual, but I'm talking about a group in a group dynamic, like with specifically groups.
But that
Like,
would
I
go
think-
without saying, Cam, because the people at the top in any type of government are always the sociopaths that wanted
God.
power. Doesn't
Have you
matter if
read-
it's the Nazis or America.
Have you read
Both
those
people.
stories about Joseph Mengele, though? Like,
Ugh.
You
that
mean the
takes
one-
a uniquely disturbed mind.
You mean the where he did enormous benefit for world medicine for the next 100 years too?
Yeah, they always do. It's
What
like,
was the cost worth it?
Or think about like Operation Paperclip advancing our space program by 50 years overnight, but it was Nazi science.
I just want to point out though, Quest Fanning's wonderful comment that there are no wonderful guys in high school. It's pretty fucking accurate.
Well, by high school standards, he was wonderful. Let's just put it that way. By
'Cause,
my dumb
I
standards.
was a pretty shitty dude in high school.
Oh, you know what? I like this comment by now that I'm looking at the comments by independent media where it says, quote, I would have stood up to Hitler. Everyone believes that if they lived in Germany in the 1930s, they would have stood up to everyone around them and not been a Nazi. And that is bullshit. Like if you
How
want to have
wild
any,
is it?
The past 2
Go
years
ahead.
have proved that.
right?
But how wild
right.
is it that people have, from the other side of the COVID stuff, have been using that to say that people who don't want the vaccine or the ones who wouldn't have stood up to Hitler.
Right.
Like,
Because
it's
Nazis
amazing
become this
these.
like epithet.
Well, and it's like, but I mean, it's even like if you look at like high profile, like politician journalist tweets, I've seen 2 or 3 recently where they're
Let's
talking
think
about
real
how
quick. Justin Trudeau.
no, I can't talk to him anymore. But no, I'm talking like there have been these tweets where these people are talking about how this what's going on right now reminds me of the 1930s, because the GOP are like Nazis, and it's like they're not even in power right now.
Right.
Like everything that you have, all of the media, all of everything is currently controlled by the left. Like, how are you even making this argument? It makes no sense.
And what gave Nazis their power was that they were the dominant culture. They were the predominant, like your neighbors were all Nazis. Your family was all Nazis. Everybody was a Nazi. If you're the kind of go along to get along person, you would have been a Nazi too. Like there's no escaping that. And we can't have any kind of like self-reflection or self-realization unless each and every one of us realizes on some level that we probably would have been a Nazi if we had been born in Germany at the right time. And, we all like to think of ourselves in these heroic through these heroic lenses. We all would have been part of the 82nd Airborne, but that's bullshit. It really is.
Do the younger generations say this? I wonder, like the Gen Z and stuff.
Well,
do they talk like this? Because
No, they make TikTok videos.
But no, I just mean because it seems a very uniquely older generation style thing to say for some reason.
You have to have read Huxley. You have to have read Orwell. Like the kinds of things aren't taught anymore.
Right.
The freedom, the ideas of freedom that were implanted in our generation, as far as I don't agree with what you have to say, but I'll fight to the death to protect your right to say it. That's gone. That is gone.
It's interesting you should mention Huxley and Orwell.
Because I think I know what you're about to say.
Well, I was just going to say, I have a wonderful podcast where I talk about all of these things
You're just doing a plug.
called the Road to Hell Film Reviews Podcast.
Okay.
But no, how much do you know about Huxley?
So I know that we frame Huxley as being this great warner of what will happen in society if we go the wrong way, as opposed to as opposed to the fact that Huxley genuinely thought this is the way we ought to go. which is not commonly understood about Huxley. His books were so great for that.
If
That
you want to learn more about this, look up the Road to Hell film reviews, where we talk about the science fiction you love. Was it really a warning or more of a blueprint?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree.
Speculative fiction.
Right.
Right. But when he wrote that book and people were in that generation were reading about Soma, for example, which is in Brave New World, whenever anyone would have any bad feelings, they would take a drug to make themselves feel better. There was a certain kind of like self-reliance still present within the society at the time that made that idea objectionable. That no longer exists.
Right.
So I do think that if you gave Brave New World to Gen Z, to the TikTok generation, they would go, this is how we should be doing things. Right.
Well,
here.
it is how they're doing things, though.
Yeah.
They're getting excited to live in the metaverse and take their antidepressants.
How weird are our children going to be?
That book, Ready Player One, is if there's like an Orwell book or a Huxley book of our generation, Ready Player One is that book.
No,
I'm
writing it right now.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think I made it like 6 pages into Ready Player One.
So, but Cam, I think you're wrong. You said, how weird is this generation going to be? And I think that's fucking... they're going to be
our
so
kids,
normal. So
our
normal.
kids as compared to the rest of them.
No, well, I mean, you mean like
that's what I mean.
Our kids? Well,
yeah,
my kids already fucking weird.
That's what I'm saying. How weird are our kids going to be compared to the prevailing generation?
Weird. Yeah.
hopefully we teach them well how to go gray man.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's we always talk about, like, in all of those stories, there are those people who are outside of the thing.
Yeah, you look at I had to get into conversation with someone today. It's like, because someone was asking me, so when you look at like the global place, the World Economic Forum and the UN, what they want to do with the world. And he's like, well, how do you talk to a normal person, convince them it's bad? I'm like, you can't.
No, you can't.
Because their goals as they state them are unimpeachable. Now, some of us might believe those are just goals that they say they have and not be, because we also understand that their methodology won't lead to those goals, because it can't. But you can't until you can teach someone all the history behind that. Like that's why they're so fucking good at what they do, because they put in a position where you can't fight them. Like how do you convince someone that making the world a better place for everybody is a bad idea? Because you believe that idea yourself. You just don't believe that that's the route to it, and that is very complicated.
There's a chapter in Brave New World. I'm sorry. There's a chapter in Brave New World that's specific to that, where the guy from the outside and the world leader from the inside have that exact conversation. And the world leader says to him, how can you say that it's bad for people not to suffer, for there not to be war? Like, that's unimpeachable. Like, for there's no disease, there's no aging.
But they're not human either anymore.
But they're not human. And Mr. Savage, the character who comes from the outside, says, but I don't want that. I want sin. I want death. I want, all of the things that we talk about being horrible blights on mankind are also things that make us that make our lives not just this factory setting where we produce and then die. Right.
Well, it's like when people talk about what's going on right now with COVID, they always lean into 1984 rather than Brave New World. And it's one of those things that I think that if you're looking at it, of course, there's a mixture of both kind of strategies in there. But I think it's 70% or more Brave New World, plying people with pleasure, plying people with drugs to make them compliant. I feel like we're far closer to Brave New World than we are to 1984.
You stopped reading science fiction a long time ago. If that's where we're stopping, buddy, go watch.
No, I don't think that's where we're stopping.
Go watch The Circle.
Well, no, I'm just saying, when the people, the older generations have this outdated view that it's 1984 and it's this over engineered fascism, and the way they use the word fascism, rather than a soft and comfortable fascism, like what we're seeing come But there's, of course,
Interesting.
there's new stuff.
So I'm looking at the synopsis for The Circle. And it says status and strategy collide in this social experiment and competition show where online players
I
must
think he
flirt.
means the other
That's
circle.
a different circle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
Tom
catfish their
Hanks
way
movie.
toward $100,000 though.
Yeah, I
That's
didn't watch that. The
That
circle, I'm
is
thinking of,
trash TV.
That
but
sounds
it's fun.
awful.
Yeah,
That-
that sounds
okay,
even
so-
worse than the actual circle.
But you want to talk about like a dystopian science
yeah.
fiction future? Like that sounds like a synopsis for something along those lines. I mean,
that sounds like reality right now. Look up the circle. Is it 2017 movie, Liz?
Something like that. Yeah.
And that's
With
gonna
Tom
be
Hanks
far
was
more
in it.
horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so the circle that I have pulled up right now, that is like a reality show.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Dude, we're in so much trouble.
But since you're a big science fiction fan, or as what was the guy who wrote? What's the guy's name who wrote The Moon Is a Harsh Mistress?
Frank Herbert, I believe.
No, that's Dune.
Frank. Okay. What's his name? there?
Heinlein.
Yeah, Robert Heinlein. Who
So
also did
Heinlein-
Stranger in a Strange Land, which is a very sexy book.
It's a very
Okay.
interesting and odd book, really. Like a lot of people
Well,
I know haven't made it through the whole thing.
It's
But
a
I was
sexy
like,
Jesus book. What are you talking about?
Oh, jeez.
it is a sexy Jesus book. It's the only way to describe it. But since you love science fiction so much, or as Heinlein called it, speculative fiction,
Mhm.
or what we may call predictive programming at this point, what do you think? I mean, of course there's things in the past that are coming into fruition now, so I guess it's a double-pronged question. What do you think is coming into fruition now, and what predictive programming or speculative fiction do you see they're leading us to in the future? Like where are we on the timeline?
Oh, where are we on the timeline? Timelines
Yeah.
are tough because they keep moving the goalposts because they keep not getting what they want.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because they like to do things like overplay their hand drastically.
Yeah. But I mean, like, there are things that we see now, like you see how Brave New World has played out, especially with certain drugs and psychotropic drugs and things that we have today and how things work. But what do you think's playing out now? Is it The Circle?
Oh, without question. I mean,
Okay.
that's if I were the CIA and I wanted to approve a movie, that's the movie I approve.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm
I
gonna
think
watch it.
I think they wrote part of the script too. And let me warn you, it's a terrible movie, but
Okay.
it's like also holy shit,
Yeah.
like wow.
Okay.
Which stories, movies, etc. do you think they've failed on? Because I feel like The Matrix is in there somehow, but what do you think they've failed on?
The Matrix is a long horizon.
Yes.
Like that, they haven't failed on that. They just haven't got.
I
there
mean,
yet.
they failed on it because they made 2 extra movies and destroyed it.
Oh yeah,
there's
that without
Like,
question. There's only
I
one
think-
Matrix movie.
Yeah, I think they kind of lost their way in pushing.
So you
these
confuse
ideas.
me because I don't even accept that those other movies exist.
I do
just
that with
mean-
Highlander.
Oh, yeah.
But
Respect.
yeah, that's definitely the long con. But what are you seeing now that worries you that you've seen in science fiction or speculative?
See, that's the
fiction?
thing. Like the whole worry thing. I think it's best not to worry, and the reason I say
Well-
that is because if you look at even like with the World Economic Forum, all these groups where you're going to be moved into these smart cities, you're going to own nothing, and you're going to be happy. That's what they're going for. In all of those stories, they still have fables that everyone knows about those outside people that don't live in the cities.
Mhm.
So Demolition Man.
But here's the thing: in their little vision of the world, they envision themselves as the superior humans.
Mhm.
But I hate to break it to you, in no place has a highly structured, strict society led to better anything
Yeah.
than a free, open society where creativity can run wild. So the idea that they're going to become these techno metropolises and everyone else is going to become farmer, like just die off and like as animals, is very fanciful because those people don't forget, and they are the ones that have unlimited creativity. like the story that I'm working on right now. I mean, it's equal parts all of the, the stories that came before. If I ever actually finish this thing, but the thing I want people to focus on is like, I think the technology outside those domed cities is going to be a hell of a lot further along, because you have all of those people that, in general, if you didn't go along with it, you probably have a greater respect for the natural world and actually are more willing to live in harmony with it than all those people that want to try and grow their food in test tubes. But you also have the creativity to make new things, and you don't lose all of history and technology just because they wanted it for themselves.
Right.
You just build up your parallel society and you go and do it yourself, and it wouldn't take fucking long.
Yeah. But what do you see on the horizon? What do you see them trying? Worry is probably the wrong word, because I don't want you to think about what's bothering you.
You see, that's the thing. That I don't think there is a horizon. If you're looking for a horizon, you're failing. It's all already underway. It all already is in place and works. The bottom line is, what does the fucking generation do? They sit in front of their video games. They eat highly processed food. Most of the shit comes directly to them. Ultimately, what's the difference if you put them on and tell them, hey, you should probably go exercise on that bike for a couple hours a day, and then that creates fucking power to run.
So Black Mirror or Rick and Morty? Rick and Morty.
Black Mirror, there's a few episodes I think that play out, but I mean, look at the metaverse. What's the metaverse other than a way to trap you inside the computer system more and more? Until eventually you forget that there is a world outside. And once you forget about the world outside, that's how many steps are where they stick that thing in your fucking back and then use you like a battery anyways.
When you're using like the Oculus, for example, the Oculus 2, which is the new, now the hand controllers for that are still a little clunky, but they're going to make them better. It's surprising to me how quickly your mind will adjust to being in that world. So much so that when you finally, because the battery life on an Oculus 2 only is about 2.5 hours, maybe depending on what you're doing with it. So when you take that thing off, you have an adjustment period back to reality. Like, I definitely wouldn't recommend getting in your car and going to drive immediately after taking an Oculus off, because your perception changes and your mind goes very, very quickly.
Your answer, Cam. Your partner's already part of the beast. He's already signed up.
I haven't used it for porn, so I'm not like totally hooked on it.
Right. Oh my God.
So no, but I will tell
how do
you,
how do you use the
The
shells?
only
Though?
thing to use it for is porn in my world.
No, so you can get viruses on those things. I know a friend of mine who was like, I immediately tried to use it for porn and instantaneously got a virus. So don't use it for porn. But I will say that there is a National Geo program that puts you in a drone that's flying over trees. And it is the nearest experience I've ever had as a human being to free flying in the air.
Your brain doesn't know the difference.
Yeah, because your brain doesn't know the difference. And like, I had to sit down because I was scared. I got the fear of heights while I was in it. But it was an amazing experience that, I mean, I think is awesome. So
to MK Almovala, by the way, that's kind of why some of us like it. It's not real meat. I wish it was rat meat. It'd be more natural. Instead, it's tofu.
Ugh. I have been told that if you put the meat from a Taco Bell taco into boiling water, it just melts.
Yeah, I believe that.
It's not. It's vegetable protein. It's not actually meat, and it hasn't been meat in years.
So not a lot of people know this, but I have gastroparesis, which is a rare digestive illness. And I belong to a lot of groups of people who have this same problem. And me and all ulcerative colitis people, Taco Bell is actually comfort food. I know a lot of people wouldn't realize this, but it's something that when you have digestive problems goes through you without a lot of trouble. And people talk a lot of shit about Taco Bell, but if you have an actual digestive problem, like, Taco Bell is one of the best things in the world. So I will never decry Taco Bell, because sometimes it's the only thing I can eat. I know that's
good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, sometimes
Taco Bell's my option.
if I eat raw broccoli, I will be like put in bed for 3 days. Whereas Taco Bell go right through you, no problems. So
that's
you
we
know,
need to get Irma then. Let's go.
That's
get
what
Irma
I was just
Taco Bell.
thinking. Yeah,
We got a constipated baby right now.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
freaking
I've been down that road, and I'm telling you, I mean, Taco Bell goes through you a lot easier than like.
Well,
the
everybody
healthy
knows
food.
that instinctively
Yeah.
too. What are the jokes about Taco Bell?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, Taco Bell's never done that to me, but I will tell you that if I'm having issues, I reach for milk and some bread, and I'm like, let's go to town. Let's destroy this gut.
Hummus. I'm telling you guys, if you're stopped up in that way, just as someone with a lot of experience with these issues,
Olive
if
oil?
she likes olive oil, hummus,
What's it saying? Hummus is olive oil.
yeah, well, it is, but it's tahini and chickpeas as well,
Yeah.
which is ground into a mash.
Right.
That also it goes through very easily. It's not going to have some of like the same highly processed bullshit as like the Taco Bell does. But if you're in pain and you can only eat things that go through you easily, hummus, I definitely recommend.
All right.
Just eat a can of corn because you won't digest it anyway. Just get it through.
Poor baby. I'm so sorry.
It is what it is.
That's rough.
Yeah, it is.
Man.
Can of corn.
So,
Yeah. So that's what's interesting about where we are, because it seems like, just as in the movies, there's this small amount of people that aren't fooled. And it's just interesting how this plays out, because the masses are fooled. The masses want to go back to eat the fake steak in the Matrix. They want to follow and comply and do the things to stay within that system. But it is the Matrix is one. The Demolition Man, I've said, that's another where there was the parallel society. But it's like, it seems that it plays out that way. But the Matrix ended after one movie, so we don't listen to the third one that ruined the whole mythos completely. But they tend to win. The little group tends to win somehow. And so, I mean, there is. It's interesting that we get that fiction that seems to prime us for stuff, but then there's a win.
That's the thing. The idea of winning in and of itself is a bad framing. Maybe people are just people, and there's going to be a push and pull forever.
Yeah,
because that's what there always has been. And to thinking that it's going to be an inevitable win. Look at our forefathers. They kind of thought they had an inevitable win, a lot of them. Maybe not the founders, because, I mean, they're the ones that said, blood's going to need to be done every couple of years to keep this shit rolling. They're probably smarter in that direction than a lot of the people out there today. But understanding what human beings are, and that we're not perfect, and we're all searching for a better world. And maybe a better world's possible. Maybe it's not. We don't know where we're going to find that, but we're all going to try.
And I wonder if the framing of the winning within these stories is a way to keep us engaged in a fight that we don't actually have to be a part of.
Like I said,
we can separate from.
Go to the World Economic Forum's website and watch their videos about what the world's going to be like in 30 years. And they'll talk about those crazy people that live out in the woods.
Right.
And that, you don't want
Inshallah.
that. You don't want that kind of life. They don't have it as good as you have it here. They have to worry about things. You don't have to worry about anything here.
But yeah, it does. Getting rid of the framing of winning, I think, is the important part, because I think that so many of the people that I know that are now insufferable to talk to after all of the stuff that's happened are still within this paradigm of this is a fight we can win, when the answer is exit most of the time.
The
I think
exit.
Yeah, answer's exit.
Like, collectivizing is what they want. The last thing in the world they want is tribes. Tribes takes them further from their goal of one world government.
Yeah.
One top-down solution, folks. That's the goal. Now, technically, it's about resources, but that's neither here nor there. That's a much longer, much broader conversation.
Wait till the water wars start.
Oh boy.
What do you mean the water wars?
I'm on Kevin Costner's side.
The idea that potable drinking water will become a rarity, harder and harder to come by.
That's actually really stupid. That's what they want.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You want to know it's a far bigger.
Excuse me.
You know it's a far bigger concern to you? Ground soil that works.
Yeah.
Because they're actively poisoning that.
Yeah.
On many levels. Poisoning.
We're gonna have a
and
soil
getting rid of
scientist
it.
on soon.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Your water, guess what? It goes in the air and gets purified. Rain, it comes down clean.
Yeah.
Even acid rain
well,
isn't really acid rain.
until the chemtrail bastards get a hold of it.
Oh, there's always pumice. It'll clear out most things.
Oh man.
Do you
We
not
can-
have your Berkey?
Perky?
Your Berkey.
Berkey,
I don't
a
know what
filter,
you're...
water filter.
Oh. No, I mean I have water barrels and they have a filtration system. So
Okay.
I don't have like a fancy. I have a Brita. Like I don't have any
No, I
fancy
mean
stuff.
I built my own Berkey.
Okay.
Well, you're gonna have to tell me how to do that because I don't want to
Yeah.
spend money on a Berkey.
It's
Mhm.
$30. No,
Okay,
no,
we can talk about that offline.
Yeah.
We'll
Right,
figure
right.
that out.
it might be
Well,
40 over because of inflation in the past year.
Right, the highest inflation.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this very short sentence that won't start a new conversation, but how ironic that Joe Biden suddenly has a scapegoat for all of the things going wrong in America right now and Vladimir Putin.
Mm.
Oh, the gas prices are up because of Putin.
Mhm.
Yeah, it
Damn
couldn't be
you,
because
Putin.
you made some pretty major changes first day. It's all that guy who rides a bear with his shirt off in Russia. It's that guy's fault. What ironic timing.
Again, I love Twitter in this way because the CBS tried to put out an article with that very headline saying that, oh yeah, there's going to be inflation because of the Ukraine crisis. No quarter is given to these people in the comments. Everyone
No.
knows. Like,
Well, what's Joe Biden have like 21% approval at this? But he literally has the lowest approval of any president ever, and they keep trying to pretend that that's not the case.
so right here, independent media suggests that homemade Berkeys be an entire episode. I totally agree.
And
Especially,
you know what the problem with that is? It takes 15 minutes to make one. Like literally breaking the whole thing down.
And also,
15 minutes.
here's the cool thing. Maybe we'll do that, and you just have to keep watching, and there'll be an episode down the line that you can catch, and we'll tell you how to do it.
There you go.
But here's the deal. I love talking with you guys, and I could talk with you for hours. As
Mhm.
the only person who has beaten Nick
Brad.
in length of episode is Brad.
Binkley.
Every time it gets longer,
Mhm.
and it's just because it's amazing. But Nick held the record for a good while, so I know I could talk to you for another hour and a half. But Jessica has to wake up very early for some
Very
doctor's
early,
appointments
yes.
tomorrow. So
I have
I've got to start.
my company's CEO coming in tomorrow.
Oh,
So we'll see how my day goes.
but I do want to ask a couple more questions before we go. You know my normal questions. I hope you're prepared for them. But here's a twist. Since it's the love month, I figured instead of me asking you what your favorite thing is about me, which that would take another hour, so I'm not doing it. But Lizzie, what's your favorite thing about Nick?
Oh, I
I
love it.
love Nick's mind, just the way he thinks about things, and the way he expresses those thoughts. That is what I love about him. He is the exact same person that he was the day that we met. He has not changed at all. I mean, he's grown as a person, I guess. Like he makes different decisions because he wants to do right by his family. But like as far as like who he is the exact same person, and that is something I love about him.
And conversely, the question for Nick is, what is your favorite thing about me? No, Lizzie. What's your favorite thing about Lizzie?
Her heart. I often look at myself as being the necessary evil to protect her and Irma in a world that's really shitty. Because I feel like sometimes she's, I won't say naive, but her heart would get in the way of, keeping herself alive to some of the awful things that are out there. And I am the sword that was put here to protect her.
So romantic.
I've got the vapors.
I know. It's like, oh my gosh.
So, sorry for like the ultra trad religion or
Dude.
gender
Right.
roles that there are there, but
Sorry.
Beautiful.
It's a wonderful thing. Like I actually kind of jokingly had that thought when you were saying it, but I'm like, but that's true.
Mhm.
Like there are things that, like I love my wife and she can be very tough, but she's soft, and that's what I love. I love that there's someone soft because I can be, but it's not my typical mode. I can. You should see me when I get mad. It's not the affable young man that you see in front of you. It's it's a very mean looking bastard.
A man who is incapable of violence is a useless man. And
Bringing up your JBP.
I'm just saying, if you're not able
wrong.
to, really protect me in the world, which means you have to do violence, then you're useless to me. You're spineless. You're nothing. A man who can do violence but controls himself, that's a strong man. So I'd rather there be strong men than useless men. Very, very much so.
But I do need you to know the next time you two come on, I'm going to ask you what your favorite thing is about me, and they need to be good. I need tears welling in my eyes,
Okay.
Oh, this was a point I was going to make earlier. I was talking about how I don't look as trad as I am, but I was called by a even more trad person the other day, a degenerate fetishist for having tattoos.
Wow.
Oh,
And you said, no, look at that guy and sent him over to me. That's a degenerate fetishist.
But I was like, that's so cool. Thank you.
wow.
Wow.
Because apparently it pissed me off.
Absolutely.
I personally would own that moniker. I'm like, thank you
Yes.
so much.
I
That is
just loved
exactly what I go for.
I love the mixture of degenerate and fetishist. Like
Wow. Yeah.
making I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who are sexual about tattoos, but it's not me. I just like pretty pictures on my arms.
It's so many things. Like
I grew up really into the stray cats, and I
Mhm.
thought that dude looks cool. I want to look
Yeah.
like that. And then started getting tattoos. That was it.
I just loved Sailor Jerry's art.
Oh.
I loved it my whole life. I didn't love Ed Hardy as much because they made those horrible shirts, but like he's a great artist as well when it comes to tattoos, and he's maligned because they put it on T-shirts, and I don't think he made much money from it at all. I think it was some other guy, but like I just loved Sailor Jerry's art, and so when I finally had enough money to put something that was similar to Sailor Jerry's art on me, I was like, hell yeah, let's do that. I'm not masturbating in the chair. I'm just enjoying that I have art on my body afterwards.
I'm not gonna lie. I
Oh,
really enjoy the process of getting a tattoo.
It's a love-hate relationship with me because
That
it's like
sunburn feeling. Oh,
yeah, there's some parts of it that I enjoy in a kind of a weird way, but it's like when you hit about this area right here, it's like deathly painful.
oh, I know. I mean, how about that? Let me explain to you what getting your ribs tattooed feels like.
Yeah, well, I mean, the
Like
finger
a
was bad enough.
jackhammer on your fucking, like a jackhammer literally on your side.
When I got it, like I said, I got a taste of that with just the one finger tattoo, but
Yeah.
it's so small. But it's like that. That's something.
So I was skinny when I got my ribs done. Oof.
Have you ever seen the movie? Oh God, what's that movie with Adam Sandler and Andy Samberg, where he's like the kid of Adam Sandler, and he had a tattoo on his back that he was given as a child, and then he grew up, and it looked ridiculous.
No idea, but that's hilarious.
No, but it sounds funny.
It's weird, but and this may be.
It sounds like the ridiculous tattoo on my stomach that I got when I was much thinner.
But that's my question, because I've never gotten a tattoo while skinny. What happens? Do they expand weirdly?
Oh, there's just no explanation. It's just a thing now. But as I told the guy in the chair, it's like, what are you gonna do when you're like an old dude and you're fat and shit? Like, what are your grandkids gonna think? And I go, they're no grandpa has a sense of humor.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because it's like I haven't done any fatty portions of me yet, because I am currently losing some weight. I don't want to get one on a fatty part and then it be like really weird and small. I don't know how that would work.
Mhm.
I mean,
should get a dolphin.
I'm gonna get a great white shark here,
Nice.
but I did decide my next tattoo 2
Mhm.
days ago,
Oh boy.
and it's gonna be a slain lamb, and that sounds dark as hell, but I'll explain that to you guys.
Sounds very Christian to me.
It is. It's extremely Christian,
Mhm.
but it's also it'll be done right and it'll look pretty badass.
Nice.
I'm telling you. That's my next one. But final question, the one we ask every time. What right now is giving you hope and motivation to carry on, a white pill, as it were, to share with the audience?
Should
You
I
wanna
go
go first,
first?
Lizzie?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
It's interactions like this. Like people, I've had a lot more interactions with people like via Zoom and even in person lately. And they're just not into the whole dividing people
Yeah.
and
Right.
just making life difficult. People are interested in creating a life that works for as many people in their lives as they can, and that is really hopeful to me. I go to work and none of those guys are talking about the stuff you see in the media.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is hopeful to me because those people still exist, and I'm hoping, I'm trying to teach my kid to be that kind of person, and I'm hoping that they are too.
Mhm.
So maybe the next generation's not not all bad.
I hope
Well,
so.
I will say part of mine is the fact that I get to spend time with you and Jessica and several other people every week talking about things that we think are very important and cutting up in the middle of it and talking about Jack Murphy for no reason. Like, I mean, it's a well-balanced time.
We do
Yeah.
mention Jack Murphy a lot for a
He comes
Bible
up often.
study.
I don't know why.
Because it's hilarious. That's
it really
why.
is.
But
It's
I do.
funny.
I love the reality of it. Like, honestly, like when I was younger coming up, I was like the fakest churchianity type person. And I love that you can just have a genuine conversation with people about, things that are deeply important, and also just be real and have,
Yeah.
stupid conversation also. I think that's awesome.
One of the
And-
greatest oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one of the greatest compliments I've gotten recently is a person who hadn't talked to me since before my conversion to Christianity. And he said something along the lines of, well, you haven't changed at all. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm still the same person. Like my values haven't changed.
She's not Kirk Cameron.
Right. I didn't like I see them as more fulfilled. I fulfilled my initial values. And so to say that I didn't, suddenly change into this different human being because of my conversion, I don't know. I took that as kind of a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's like I don't think it's good to be disappointed in a conversion. But I will say when Kirk Cameron on Growing Pains went from this fun-loving, fun person to watch to this super serious, like not jokey person after he became a Christian, I was like, this sucks. Like, you did it wrong, brother. Come back to the light.
He's still hilarious to watch in the proper context because he
Wow.
got with a guy named Ray Comfort, and they do
Ooh.
these ultra weird, like the way
Let me
that
tell
a
you,
monkey
banana.
holds a banana proves kind of like you're like, what? That's
I love it.
stupid. So yeah, you just have to reframe your enjoyment. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you people all proved to me that not all Christians are ridiculous.
No, I'm still pretty ridiculous.
I mean, true.
In the okay, cool ways.
Right. Thank you. Again.
I guess in
And
the
so-
non-apocalypse producing ways.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But same question to you, Nick. What is currently bringing you hope?
Well, what brings me hope is I've read a lot, understand some of the timelines, understand some of the goals of the people that would try and push our lives into a particular place. And the fact that they've had to try and pour everything up to 11 makes me think that they're scared that they're going to lose control.
Yeah.
And they're bringing out everything that they have. And the more they bring to the table, I think the less it works.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I kind of lean on that. Like I said, there's always the fact that like no matter what they do, they understand that there's always going to be those of us that are like, nah, I'm not having that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and it's like there have been a couple of people on Twitter lately who I totally understand where they're coming from, but it's kind of in the more black pilled area, is when they're like mad that people are talking about narrative collapse. The narrative, there's a lot of it that's collapsing currently, and it's nice to see, but seeing it as the end all and seeing it as the win is a bad idea.
Want me to completely undermine it for you and just end on the blackest pill?
I'm just saying, all I'm saying is when they are struggling to keep up with the narrative because it's not working as well anymore, that gives me a little happiness.
Well,
okay, but I kind of do want him to.
You got to shut the episode off, and I will tell you after the episode because I don't want to ruin a perfectly good episode with a deep, deep, infinite black hole of a pill.
Plus, it's always nice to leave the audience with something they can't have.
If you're interested in finding out what I'm going to say, go listen to the Road to Hell film review podcast.
Okay,
Awesome.
okay.
So, with that, we love you both. We love
very
talking
much.
to you, and we're gonna do. We need to do this more often about any number of things because it's
we got into the white black thing. We've got to do the Christian atheist thing next,
Oh,
right?
sure.
I would love to do that because I think that you are incredibly insightful about that topic. And even though you're an atheist and I'm a Christian, I think that we really like meet in the middle as far as that stuff goes. And like, I would love to have that conversation, honestly.
I just like conversations. I'll talk about anything.
So thank you both for coming on. As far as where to point people to your stuff, you have nickpecone.com, and you update that semi-regularly, or have you given up on that?
I haven't given up on it. I have a lot of new things. And me and Lizzie have, I think, 4 episodes already recorded for the next generation of Misfit Family Podcast.
Awesome.
Nice.
So we're working on that. Believe it or not, like I've been working my ass off during all this. I know a lot of people stayed home the past 2 years. I did not.
Yeah.
So finding time to do the podcasting has been doing the podcasting is the easy part. Finding the desire to edit the podcast has been the difficult part.
Yep. Well, that's why I love that we started going live because I'm not going to edit the video. You get what you get, and then now my audio can match. So I don't have to do a lot of anything in post, and I love that.
I would love to do that, but the amount of time that I'll waste editing, she's going to waste trying to get ready for the podcast the minute I have it on video. I can't do that often.
But yeah, so if you want to listen to their podcast, it is called Misfit Family, and you have a new podcast called Road to Hell Film Reviews, correct?
I think we heard something about that.
That's with my friend Danny McCarthy, who does the Road to Nowhere podcast. He wrote a book called Road to Nowhere. He actually is a historian focused on utopianism.
Interesting.
Ooh, yeah.
And so me and him decided, hey, you're an expert on utopianism. I'm a bit of an expert on pop culture. Why don't we talk about like sci-fi movies and where that ties in with utopianism? Because there's a lot of ties in.
It is up my specific alley. I'm definitely going to be looking into that.
I've posted our first episode. It was on the Planet of the Apes.
Nice.
Okay.
Our second episode and like maybe a bonus episode, we'll see how I release that, is actually both about the circle.
Okay.
We're going to be getting together hopefully in the next week or two to talk about our third episode on Midsummer.
Wild movie.
Yeah.
Followed by Strange Days, because I love 90s movies.
I am peaked, sir. I am peaked.
She's horny for your content.
Like that.
Just had to go there.
IQ.
So beyond that, if you want to follow Nick on Twitter, you say you don't have one. So I didn't know what to put here for you.
Yeah, no, I
Lizzie.
don't Twitter.
But if you want to follow Nick on Twitter, which he barely uses, at Nicky Pinecone. And so we need to talk about exchanging some skills for podcasts and stuff, because I like making videos, you like making music. I'd like to mix these things together.
I did actually start music for your show, and then I got sidetracked on it, to be completely honest. You and one other person were going to work on something, and then my deadline was like the second week of January before we. If you ever really want something real good with turnaround, I can tell you the guy to go to though. Nick
Okay.
White.
Okay. But we should work together on some cool stuff because I feel like between the two of us, we can make something kind of interesting.
Life to the max in regards to the tree in the background. Yes, we have a year-round tree.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
I just have a November, December tree.
Mhm.
He goes year round.
Mhm.
And
We also
they go
have
year
like
round.
5 trees in the house during
Yeah.
Christmas time.
Something like that.
Are there 2 behind you right now?
There
though?
are. That's like
Okay.
actually the office tree. I just didn't put it away, so I thought you just sit over there with the Valentine's tree for now. You'll be fine.
So wait, you change the trees depending on the holiday?
Oh yeah, of course. Those are like
That's
little hearts that we made in
wonderful.
our homeschool day back there, and
I love it so much.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
no,
awesome.
we also have different skirts depending on the season.
Okay.
Like you
That's
got
amazing.
your winter one, then you've got like the fall one that's got the like regular leaves on it. You got the straight green one for summer.
You
You
gotta
got
do
the
a
green one with
Okay.
flowers on it for spring.
Of course.
Wow. That commitment. Life to the Max says that is commitment.
You gotta embrace the not wanting to put away the tree.
Right?
No,
Well,
that's the
it's a-
worst part of it. I've got 4 other trees that need put away. Like we
Right.
just the one.
And also just celebrate life. I mean, life
Yeah,
is
man.
magical if you'll celebrate it. So
I can't wait till Irma discovers that not everyone has trees up all year.
Yeah. No, and that's what's funny is people like give me serious crap for 2 months of Christmas trees. And I'm like, I'm not giving it to you. This and it became a full 2 months in 2020. But before that, it was like I think just before Thanksgiving.
okay.
But then we hit 2020, we hit the COVID bullshit, and we're having joy sooner. And
Yeah.
so Halloween ended, Christmas tree went up.
Yeah.
But Cam, you and I did 2/5 of a year of Halloween.
We did.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm never gonna do it
You're
again.
never gonna bother with it again. No,
Nope.
I like
I did-
enjoying my horror movies when I watch them.
I
Right?
did 113. And so I felt like that was a good amount to end it with and be like, beat me.
I ended it with what, like 105, I think.
Yeah.
Something
When
like that.
everything was all told. And the reason I ended it is because I wanted to end it with a full week of Christmas themed horror movies.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
which
I
did.
will continue the challenge still. You guys are the first two to ever complete it, and you both did it on the same year.
We
But I
both
do-
spiked the fucking football on that
Yeah,
shit.
we
too.
did.
Right. Because most people with that, they would make it about 30. I think the longest was 58 before that.
Wow.
And
And
so,
I'm a
yeah.
horror movie guy, and I'll be the first to tell you there were psychological ramifications to it.
Yes, that's the problem. That's the problem. It is
I-
actually a challenge. People think I can watch one movie every day. That's
Mhm.
easy. And like, yeah, you think you could do that, but there's a lot of really horrible things. Like,
I felt like for me, there wasn't a hell of a lot of psychological ramifications, but I did start to hate horror movies. And I
Ah.
love horror movies, and I don't want to hate them. And
Fair
so
enough.
it was like,
You stuck to the wrong list, bro. You got to watch mine.
well, maybe next year, or I guess this year, we'll let Nick have heavy input on the list.
yeah,
I watched a
'Cause-
lot of weird stuff.
dude, all I
Well-
knew was that I wanted to end it in a way that would make it hard for not you, but other people to beat me.
Mhm.
And 2, I wanted to end it on 13 because that's,
Yeah,
you know,
obviously.
Sure.
yeah.
I'm not
Because
gonna lie. There's a part of me that feels like Cam really shouldn't have beat me on this, so I need to do it again just to beat Cam. The problem is, it will take a toll on our marriage.
Yes, I will never
Oh.
see because I would literally be listening to hymns on earbuds every night with like a pillow over my head because I can't do horror.
Yeah.
And
It's-
it's like
it's-
I'm never going to see you.
Well, and the other thing
until
was that she doesn't watch
October,
horror
so-
movies, so like it's more that we just had to spend time away from each other, so I could watch horror movies.
Right.
And it's like I don't like doing that either. I like horror
Yeah.
movies, but I like my wife too.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, we'll see about this next year, but Jessica has to go to sleep. So
Yes.
thank you so much for coming on. We
I love you
appreciate you
guys.
very much. We love you, and we're gonna think of a reason to bring you back. I think I'm booked out till May at this point because I'm a fucking boss when I get stuff done. But yeah, so after that we'll see what we can do for sure, because I love having you guys on. Y'all are both just little shining lights of people, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
But
You got the Southern Baptist voice. Nick's just like, I gotta go.
but I will let you guys go so that we can read off our other nonsense. And if you want to hang out,
All right.
we'll be here after. Thank you guys. All right, for the rest of you people, we have some cool stuff coming up. Next week, we have Kat Cattinson coming on, which I'm very interested in because she is a detransitioner. She was once transgender and now is not. And her very existence, like even today, I was on TikTok and I saw a video where she was responding to a death threat that someone gave her. So this is a fascinating little tiny subsect of humanity that people want dead. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. I want to hear her insight. She's also a biology major and studies science. And so it's not an uninformed point of view as well. So I'm interested in that. After that, Jessica's out for a week because she has some surgery to have done. And so Monica Perez will be joining me in her seat. And we're just going to chat, talk about, I don't know what, I'll figure it out before we get there. But after that, it's our St. Patrick's Day episode. We lucked out and got an Irish for the show.
And Irish.
We got an Irish. Her name is Sarah, and she is a dirt scientist, and she's very interested in the way dirt and humanity is intertwined and connected. And so that'll be
so excited for that.
Very fun conversation. And past that, another friend of the show, Jessica's other best friend besides me, who's number one, Britt will be coming back. And since I'm not moving, I guess I'll be there unless you don't want me there and you can do a solo girls only episode. I don't know.
Why would I not want my two best friends to fight over who's my bestest friend? That sounds like a great time for me.
So that's what we got for you in the next 4 weeks. Beyond that, let me remind you, we have a Patreon. So if you want to help us keep going and help make things a little bit easier on the back end of things, you can join our Patreon. With that comes specific perks, one of them being the occasional Zoom meeting. Typically, I think I'm going to do it either once or twice. I haven't decided the full schedule yet, but at least once a month, we will hang out together as friends. And I have online board games that we will bring out and play. And
are you talking about Quiplash?
I'm talking about Quiplash or TKO or several other ones. We've got games. It's fun. You should join it so you can be a part of that. Also, if we have an early episode, this next couple of months, there are going to be several early episodes. We're talking to someone who's in New Zealand. We're talking to someone who's in Ireland. We're talking, I think that may be the early ones, but there are several early ones. And so any of those, our patrons get to watch live and comment on in the moment. So if you want to be a part of that, patreon.com/themadOnes. Share the show. If you found this episode interesting, if you found our episode about death or about exorcism or about any number of other topics interesting, our abortion episode with my mother in particular, people really like that. If you want to share, if you think someone you know would enjoy or be moved or edified by an episode of ours, share it with them, because that's how we grow. That's how we get our watch hours up. That's how we get our subscribers up, is sharing. Beyond that is you could be like Jessica. You could buy one of our shirts, and when someone asks you what the Mad Ones is, you could say it's a rock and roll band, or hear me out here. You could say it's a show on YouTube and a podcast that they could listen to with a couple of people who are pretty good at talking to experts in a lot of different areas, or people who just have interesting stories. So buy a shirt, wearethemadOnes.com/store, and share this crap.
I did that. I just want to let you know I did that because I was half convinced the person would tell me that they'd heard the band before. So I was teeing them up for something I thought would have been funny. They didn't do that, but
but beyond that, I'm on Twitter at @HamCarlos because I got popped for telling a certain Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Dildo, to eat poo-poo and pass away. Ham Carlos. Jessica is still currently at Soup Canarchist. We don't know when that will change, but it probably is going to. That's what she said. We'll see.
I'm busy. Things will
Don't
happen
rush her
later.
on it. Don't rush her on it.
Taking my time.
Beyond that, we do have a Bible study we do every week. And so right now we're working through Acts. We're doing 2 chapters at a time because we like to talk about that as well as other things. We like to talk about all sorts of things. And I'll tell you this, when we get to Genesis and Revelation, it's going to be 1 chapter a week because I have a lot of reading to do to prep for those. And those are coming later. I have so much reading to do because it's so much more fascinating than you realize. I'm telling you, like I have learned things in the last year about those 2 books in particular that blew my mind. And so it'll be fun. We do it every Thursday. But if you want to join us this week, send me a message on Twitter, or I mean, you could email me, cam@mlganetwork.com, and I'll get you into the Discord or the Twitter chat where we conduct all of our business. Beyond that, we're on every podcatcher. If you want to listen, just search it in a podcatcher or go to wearethemadOnes.com and you can listen directly from there. If you're listening and you'd rather see Nick's face as he talks about sending pornography to racist people, you can do that at youtube.com/themadOnes, on Rockfin, or at Odyssey. That's it. That's all I've got for you. We love you. We appreciate you. I'm not going to lie to you and say that we do this show for you. I mean, we do sort of, but mostly we do it for us. So beyond that, we love you and you have a chance to be a light in the world. So go light it up.